Hello, welcome back to the Double Swing. We did take an event off, the 16-team single elim bracket, not quite piquing our interest, but we do have another episode now previewing the Blast Open London with Thorin joining us to lend his expert opinion on these top teams, but also see what he can spot, see what he can find in those underdogs. Will be interesting to find out, but before we get into all of that, let's quickly recap what happened last time. It was ESL 1 Cologne, the main stage and the playoffs. My picks went terribly, 2 points only for MOUZ, making something of an effort. Yubi, fantastic. Spirit picked, Vitality and Furia both making playoffs. Loving those 5 points. The guests, not there. Viewers being awarded a couple points just for charity's sake in that context. And we still have a viewer-led scoreboard, but Yumi now spreading the gap. It's 38 to 30.
The fans are winning. The fans are beating.
The fans slash viewers, yeah. They actually are ahead. They get 3 points and they don't ever have to pick against us, so they do have an edge. They win most of the time. It's
sort of like our mean tester almost.
Okay.
Yeah. They do have a slight edge. But yes, they are in the lead by 1 point. Yumi 4 points ahead of me. Another opportunity here to maybe close that gap, seeing as I do have the first pick. But before we get into that, Thorin, what do you think of our team list? I've jokingly named this room that we're in Blast Replacement London. It's been an interesting series of qualification events and then just replacement team announcements. Not a great start, is it?
Yeah, the problem is at the moment, I think what's jarring, I don't know if you guys have this vibe, is one of the things about the VRS era is because it really is just the same teams usually invited to every event because that's how VRS works. I actually have almost gotten used to that and taken for granted that all the big events, it's like Formula One, you just see all the same people there. So it actually shocks me when I have to do that calculus we used to do back before COVID of there's this 3 top teams are here and then there's 3 mid teams here, but this one big favourite did. The obvious ones is some of these events Falcons skip, for example. Well, in my brain, I'm still thinking of that narrative of they did a pretty decent run at EWC. Can they big it up, win this one? And then also, it means you then get the random teams. You don't see the Ecstatics of the world here. Normally, I'm only used to seeing them if they creep in through an RMR or something to the majors. So it's actually quite an interesting field here at Blast. I've got to say, it's not just the normal amount of teams you want, and obviously the whole format of Blast Open, if people don't know, for this year is people have missed this. Blast do the Blast, I can't remember what the name of it is now. The other Blast ones are just normal tournaments with the ESL format, but they have the 2 ones. They have the Bounty one, which is a bit funky because it's you pick your team. Yeah. But if people don't know, this one's supposed to be the one where it's you're bringing in some outsider, lesser teams and some top teams, and you're sort of mixing them together in some sort of weird tier clash or something. So it's certainly an interesting approach. Put it this way, it does feel a step down though when I've just watched Cologne and EWC. This feels more like put it this way, if I am the Vitalities and the MOUZ of the world, you better win this event. This is your chance to win it while someone else maybe isn't here.
Yeah, it's weirdly almost it's somewhere in between DreamHack Masters and DreamHack Open. It's got a little bit more prestige than a DreamHack Open, but it's still got the teams that would make it a part of the Open sort of the format. So
yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
It's kind of an intermediary tournament to a certain degree, because we've lost a lot of those sort of tier 2 level up tournaments, so to speak.
It's also a bit weird that I've just watched the EWC final. Neither team's here. I don't get to see either of them. They're just not here. They're watching with us.
Neither's third place. That's 1, 2, and 3 from EWC not actually in attendance. But there are some interesting teams, deeper down the order. Obviously, we're not used to watching Ecstatic, Imperial, Imperial only here due to some replacement nonsense going on. It's going to be interesting to see who does well. I'm curious to see how M80 look. It's been a while since we've seen them play some real CS. But I've got the first pick. I'm going to kick us off with, I don't think, a particularly controversial acquisition or pickup here. Even though they didn't look that brilliant at EWC, they're still with this same roster. Tanir has not arrived. I'm taking Spirit. They will not be playing with Tanir. That's something I kind of discovered today with a clip from HLTV confirmed on Twitter. I'm not going to lie, I was not aware this was their plan. I was still on the post-EWC track, but apparently it will still be Zontix. I still think they're playing great CS. They've got the best player on the planet right now, and arguably, in terms of Counter-Strike I've watched, the best player I've ever seen, so I'm still very happy to pick them. Sure, people have their questions in terms of we're entering the CT meta and IGLing has become more important than ever. Can Chopper hold up? We'll have to find out. I've never been a particularly Chopper Doomer kind of guy. I've always been very happy with what I've seen out of Spirit on the server, and I think they're still going to play some great CS. Zontix doesn't thrill me. He doesn't play the exciting CS that Tanir does, but he's just so solid, so dependable. I think they're going to be able to pick up potentially another win here. If not at worst, they'll make a grand final, potentially lose a thriller. I'm really hoping that they do play a fun final. That's one thing they've kind of not had yet. They've reached grand finals when other teams have essentially, already climbed Everest, and then look at Spirit like it's another mountain next to it, as if they have to mount that as well. So potentially a more fun final in the works if they do make it that deep. But I'm loving Spirit as the favorite to go all the way here in London.
Yeah, I mean, I was very recently able to speak to both yourself, Duncan, and Maui on Snake and Banter about my thoughts on Spirit, and just that I'm confused still about this move, and it's even more perplexing the fact that the timeline seems to have changed. They've gone from EWC to now, he's playing Blast Open London now as well. It does make me think that there's maybe some internal discussion happening about whether or not they can actually figure out, there's rumors about something to do with Zontix's visa or his passport or something. Maybe the transfer with Tanir is not going so smoothly. Who knows? Or maybe it is just about building a buffer in time before the next event after Blast London, because the turnover is quite quick. I think either way, given that this component of the tournament is online, having someone like Zontix actually is going to benefit you. Donk sometimes seems to be struggling actually in some of these online officials that they're playing throughout this year, albeit it's not too many of them. And often in those types of games, Zontix, hell, even Jue seems to, do better or perform to a higher caliber. So for this leg of the tournament, I mean, it's a very solid pick. I think there's still just a weird uncertainty around Spirit about whether or not this roster is given time, or Tanir just comes in, and for even whom on the roster, because you brought up on Snake and Banner, Thorin, they've actually not even decided or made any announcement about where Zontix is going. Is he going to be benched, or is he going to be transferred? There's no clue yet.
You could even also say as well, I saw some fans even suggest this, and even though initially it sounds stupid, your brain recoils, right? You could really, if your team Spirit, actually also consider, let's just try it out for a while. Maybe if we don't like it, we actually do just bench Sway, and it was just a point where, because at the end of the day, if you've already spent the money anyway, you can just choose to do that. You can just bring him in for one event, and if it doesn't work, you bring Zontix in instead. You try A/B test. It sounds mad because we all know they signed the guy, but essentially in this scenario, it's just a luxury, isn't it? You actually have that choice. In a weird way, that even though that makes it tricky, because the PR of signing a guy and then being like, lol, you won 2 events in your bench, that is mental. But at the same time, it's mental to bench Zontix too. Because I agree with you, KingT. I actually think there's an area in CS that a lot of fans, I can tell that they're a different type of fan to me. Because one thing is, listen, I also get seduced by the players that are really exciting. Even though people might know I really despise Madger as a person, I do think Aurora is a really fun team to watch though. The way they fight, they're essentially like a UFC fighter that just brawls and just rock 'em, sock 'em, robot. That's really fun to watch. Yeah. But I always think you don't actually like Counter-Strike if back in the day you thought Device was a boring AWPer, or you think that Rops baits too much. It's I don't think you actually like CS, mate. That's also another way of playing CS. Again, if I want to use the MMA analogy, that's like the fucking Hamza or Khabib where they just wrestle you to death, You have to appreciate that for itself. So I do think, sadly, Zontix, it isn't just the whole meme of he has no aura outside the server. He doesn't really have aura in the server. He really is a really boring player. But I agree with you. I actually think he's reasonably reliable. And I actually also think, mate, as much as he can choke, he also is as someone, it's one thing I always think is hard of how we label chokers. He's a choker, but he also seems to win a bunch of clutches and stuff, and he'll have a big moment in a game where he'll stand up and win around for you. And as much actually as he has no aura, in a weird sense, I actually sometimes feel sometimes he just seems like he has that Iceman element where he just fucking performs. So he's one of those players, if he does end up being cut, I feel really bad for him. The joke is though, as you say with your pick, they actually are the most obvious first pick, even over Vitality. The real joke is maybe he's about to win 3 out of 4 tournaments, then get his ass benched. It's I don't know what more was. Essentially, his crime is not being fucking Tanir. That's it. So he's not even doing anything wrong, is he? Is he?
It's a classic scenario in CS, right? His only crime is not being quite as good and exciting as the player replacing him. It's the Nork example, time and time again. This kid has got the same issue. He's just not quite good enough. I mean, hell, this Spirit team are famous for it. They did it to Artfrost. No, you're not Shiro, though. You're not a bad AWPer. You're just not Shiro. And I feel he's going to suffer. And you're right, Yumi. Donk does fall off a bit in online play this year. 1.33 rating, plus 3% rounds. I mean, he's garbage. I don't know how they managed to win. Thankfully, Zontix stepped up, 1.28 rated. Clearly, they needed that help to drag that corpse of a team over the line in their online officials. Hopefully they can put up with this reduced Donk and make it through. Fingers crossed.
By the way, there is one detail, though, that I think people have actually missed, which is when Valve have done this change, where, like, in theory, the game's a bit more CT-sided now, and it's not, in theory, as easy to get T rounds. If you actually ever look, one of the things I don't think people realise is, like, that in theory might actually nerf Spirit. That should be the ultimate team that gets, like, a nerf, because that's where Donk is unstoppable on the T side. That's probably the most OP player in the game is Donk on T side, right? So, but I also think as well, this is why I have such a hard time figuring out if the roster move's the right one. If he does really do like a 1.5 rating, you can still win the tournament no matter what. Like, that's why this guy is probably the most OP player to ever play Counter-Strike. Like, it's hard to tell. Like, is that actually like they game planned and they played around him and that was what they planned for? Or did he really just shoot everyone in the head? I can't tell. Like, he's one of those players I struggle with myself. I just essentially just enjoy him playing that. I worry about the shaft and the fact, you know.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah, you look at like how a round builds for a moment, and then you see it actually sucks for about 10 seconds, and then Donk gets a triple kill, and you're just like, it's all coming together.
Call chopper, yeah, nice call.
Yeah, fantastic work once again. Spirit have set him up for success.
Yeah, no, I mean, it can definitely work. Let's put it that way. It can be being set up, it can be he's just a miracle worker. That might be the saving grace of their T-sides, but in any case, they'll keep winning. I'll keep picking them.
I think it's a good pick, though. I think they'll win this event, mate.
Yeah, Thorin. You've got second pick. Who do you like the look of?
Well, this is also fucking glorious, isn't it? How in the world do I have second pick? And I'm going to go with Vitality, team that's won most of the events this year. Basically, like, we're all telling them they're shit because they lose in the semi-finals to other top teams. Like, that's how you know, by the way, how it's weird, because in a way, our overreaction in the second season shows how insane the first season was. Like, in the first season, we all really did take for granted. 1, they're definitely winning the tournament. 2, probably undefeated. And then 3, actually, let's see if someone even gets a map. That was like the sort of shit we were doing before. So now, we actually do flame them now if they just lose in like 3 maps or something. Someone good, someone who's actually like top team. So I've got to say, if I can't take Spirit, I feel like it's insane I'm even able to pick Vitality here, because the other reason why I actually love this Vitality pick as second in this draft is because I actually do think, for real, this is the one time the pleb fans are sort of right. There's actually not that many like major factors in Vitality I think are off. Look, they're not as good as they were last season, but like, who the fuck can be? That was unbelievable, the level they were playing at. Like, I even told people from other games who were asking me about their dominance. I said, no, the crazy thing is, it's not even like a team that's got a gimmick. There's not even one thing they're doing. They play like all-stars of CS. They got on every map. Every player literally is like fragging above the numbers level they should have. But I'll tell you what, if the one obvious drop-off they've had this season is, mate, I actually heard, I know you might have seen that Apex said after EWC that 2 players were ill in the team. I've heard Zimu was one of them. Yeah, and I have to say, he not only has had a bad month anyway since they came back, but bro, he looked really off in that fucking tournament. Like, I think he had one of his worst maps ever in that actual like fucking series or something. So, yeah, even though they were like a team, they weren't just a one-man squad. At the same time, if you have a player that does like on a bad day average like a 1.25 rating, you can't have like that player not turn up at all and have his worst games. Yeah, that does tank them. So I feel like this is a perfect chance, by the way, especially with like the Falcons of the world and all these other top hot teams all out the mix. This is a perfect time to just bounce back, have a nice Zimu performance, get a nice 1.36 rating, couple of big maps, especially, by the way, farm the bad teams, get yourself back in the game, which presumably he's not ill anymore. And then you can be right there winning the tournament again. I even think also the thing that still holds for them as a team is, sure, they've lost a bunch of Mirages. That's maybe the map we should all look at. But aside from that, their map pool still looks pretty sturdy. Like, I don't personally think they're one of the teams that's going to suffer from like the Anubis going out and the Overpass coming in. That wasn't even a map they really favoured. I could see them pivoting Overpass and be really good as well.
And I think most notably the improvement with Vitality, I think, is most, I guess, noticeable with MOUZ. As a player,
he looks awesome, man.
He went from being, arguably the weakest link and definitely deserved to be cut maybe a year ago, to being a top 3 player in his positions. Like, genuinely,
he's even a player, by the way, as far as I know, that actually is one of the ones that's benefited from this rating change of Hitchell TV. I think they said actually that they pumped his numbers up.
Yeah, and just the intangible aspects of how good he is on bomb sites when he's anchoring, his ability to find multi-kills throughout this year, and maybe that does take a hit. Everything seemed to take a hit for Vitality at the start of this season, but I think with MOUZ, it's just strange to see him go from the weakest player, even sometimes behind Apex, to one of the strongest components in terms of building CT side comebacks or locking down bomb sites in general. Even his T side work has been actually very sharp. So I've been very impressed with Vitality. I still think the players are fantastic. So even with a shaky start, I'd be really surprised if Vitality just completely flop the rest of the year.
Yeah, there's a few little things that have been off, right? We've had a not as insane ZywOo. We've had FlameZ actually have some of his worst games. Like, he's actually taken a big dip. That's been a problem. Apex, the guy kind of plays off him on a lot of maps, CT and T side, or sometimes baits for him, baits him, does a lot of... There's some interaction between those two. He's also had a pretty shocking fall off, I think, in terms of his overall fragging. So there are little things that are wrong, but my word, Mezzy is just... He's deserving the moniker, right? He got smacked with the label of king and then came back for the second season of the year and actually played like it, which is, I think, insane, considering, again, the roles, the responsibilities. It's a tough job to have, but Mezzy's been doing it fantastically. Yeah, Rops has barely even fallen off. This is still a lethal side.
Yeah.
It's a lethal side. I'm not overly worried. I still think Spirit have the edge right now, but this is a roster that they play themselves back into form. You're right. They get those free layups early on. You know, I don't know who that opening matchup is. I can check right now. It's M80. If they dumpster M80, which they probably will. No offense, M80, but I've seen you play in NA right now. You're struggling. I can't imagine it'll be much better here. This will be a team that can roll through comfortably into the playoffs.
I'll even give you some copium. The two teams that they've lost to, Mongols and MOUZ, these are also teams, by the way, that they have played a billion times and they've beaten every time. So you would not, and they're top teams, by the way. So in theory, those should be the teams that, for real, the first thing they do after each event is like fucking game plan for Vitality, because you know you're going to play them again. And if you are like MOUZ and Mongols, surely these are the squads that you've got on the dartboard, you know. So I even fit. That's the thing. I would be more worried, and I'd be more like ringing the panic alarm bell if it was like, first of all, Spirit winning's fine. They've got the best player in the world. If it was like random teams winning, like, okay, Mongols won this one. If the next one, you know, is like fucking Aurora wins the next one and then fucking Falcon, then I'll be more worried, because then it's like, why aren't we in events? But as long as you lose to like the other really good teams, that's different from if you lose in the group stage to Team Liquid or something. You know, that would be more scary.
Yeah, it's not quite Navi era stuff, as some people were calling last year potentially an era, which was absurd. Going out in groups is beyond farcical if you're trying to make that claim. They're still making top fours. They're still beating up on teams in the group stages. Even though Liquid seem to, for some reason, give them fits, they're still taking care of it in 2 maps. It's not a weak Vitality to that extent.
They even looked, by the way, on that Mongols game like they were actually going to come back. They were doing like the miracle comeback they used to do last season, but also that does show you what's different. Last season, famously, the most famous one is the one where Falcons first got Monacy and they were up like 12-6 on the deciding map. When they started doing the comeback, last season, it's like you were watching a movie. I was sure they were going to complete the comeback, mate. They just looked like they could, like history would not let them lose, like destiny was just on their shoulder. That doesn't seem like it's the same thing now, though. It does feel like now it's way more up in the air, you know. And crucially for me, I actually think psychologically is where they're weakest. It's like, I feel like if you're the other teams, you should feel like this is your chance to get them, you know, like they're sort of wounded a bit. But even so, like you said, mate, they're still a really strong team to pick to win the tournament though, right? And this would be a great bounce back event too.
I think the amber flag from the end of last season, though, was that all these games seem to get closer and closer as the season played out. Yes. You know, they went from hyper dominant, nobody could even touch them, to very close overtime or near overtime games.
Well, people forget, mate, even before the major, that IEM Dallas was way closer. They were that was touch and go a lot of times. Yeah.
And this, I mean, it always felt like they were due a loss. Like eventually they were going to lose, and then of course they lose in like a best of 1 at the major, which is was always going to be the joke. But you could smell the, I think, the blood in the water for the team as they were maybe deteriorating and former other teams were catching up a little bit more. So there's maybe not like a massive surprise that they've faltered at the start of this season, but I think for them, they still hold themselves to that high expectation. You know, they always said that the pressure of getting to finals and having all these tournaments in a row didn't get to them. But now that they're not getting into finals consistently, that will then be their own internal pressure to get over.
I think it clearly is, yeah. A little mental struggle. It's just removed their edge. Like, they have lost a bit of hunger, lost a bit of drive after literally doing everything last season. And this season they look slightly less, you know, less ready for it, less up for it. And that slight edge is all it took to take them right off of number 1, being so dominant. Yuumi, you have back-to-back picks. Is this going to be our first underdog pick? What are you liking the look of in this board?
I'm going to stay with the favorites for a second. I'm just going to pick the only other team that really makes sense to me. And even though they haven't...
You actually pick it. I thought we had to pick the favorite. It's all good. Luckily, I would have picked Vitality anyway, but I've just discovered swapped in. Okay, fair enough. Okay, I was lost in the format. It's all right.
Yeah. You can pick either side,
Okay.
whichever you.
If you want to swap for GamerLegion, go for it. Like,
it's all good. We'll stick with it for now.
It's okay. You can have ecstatic. I am picking MOUZ. They have played 5 finals. They have won 1. They always feel so close, and they definitely have enough firepower on this team to make it work. I think they've even spoken about it. We've spoken about it a bunch. The fact that sometimes their game planning seems to fall apart, or players just don't seem to uphold their end of the bargain when it gets to these big stage games. But when they're on, and listen, I've been very critical of GymFat, but when he's on in particular, this team feels like it effectively has no weakness. You know, occasionally Torji can go missing, even though I would argue he is the most reliable piece that is on this team. It feels as though they always have the oomph. It's just about the draw of the matchups. You know, for them, they actually almost want a vitality. You know, they want a spirit, but they almost it almost feels like they have to like amp themselves up for these games and know that they're coming well in advance for them to make that game planning work, get themselves dialed in, and make sure that everything kind of falls into place. Because when it doesn't, you know, Xerxin is the guy that usually takes the hit and takes the fall, and he's exceptional. But when the game is not coming together, the lurk kills from Spinks aren't happening, Torji's not getting picks on the AWP, Xerxin just cannot bear that burden by himself, and it so frequently falls off where MOUZ just don't have any biting power, especially on that T side. And it's a shame, because I don't even think Brolin's calling is particularly bad, but anytime they try and lean back on set pieces, it just looks a little disjointed or a little sluggish.
Yeah, they're not supposed to be an exec heavy team, I think that's kind of the vibe I get. They're supposed to work space, work picks, and Xerxin, when he has to do it exclusively as a win con, you kind of see that he's not actually that efficient at it. He's not actually donk. He can't do it at that volume. He can't do it with that success rate. Now, Thorin, they took a loss at the Esports World Cup, which I thought for me was a bit of a shock. I liked Falcons coming to the event. I picked them to beat G2. I really thought there's no way they have all their superstars fall off like they did in Cologne. But are you concerned at all about the way they've played? I mean, they've made finals, they've lost in semis, they've never quite gone over the edge or taken that next step. Do you think it's a roster limitation, or is it still just all in their heads all along?
The problem I have, it's actually a take that I've done on my shows recently, which is I actually really like this team. They genuinely are like a consistent top 3, top 4 team. You can bank on that all the time. They're even one of those teams that actually like has a very, like, here's the thing. I do think they lack like maybe like a killer map, but the general map strength is very good, like quite hard to veto against. Also in their team, they've quite distributed skill in the squad. But the area I do feel like they have a problem is the IGL angle. I don't think Broline is a bad IGL, but I do think there is a reason why to this day, nobody ever says, is this guy one of the best IGLs? Is he a contender with IGL of the way? He actually has like the chopper phenomenon where no one ever considers him. They almost act like there is no IGL. So I do worry that they've sort of plateaued as a team though. Like remember, they made their roster move way back at the beginning of the year. And actually, if you look, the results have been pretty much the same the whole year. Like they haven't really like fluctuated massively. People are thinking of last year when they'd have a lot more, top 8. So now they're just a lock for top 4 constantly. They make a few final. The real problem obviously is aside from that one PGL, they don't win tournaments. That's a problem. So I have 2 angles that I'm worried about with this squad. One is I do worry that psychologically what happens when you don't win that many times. I think it's actually a really underrated thing about like people who are legendary for coming second is in a weird way, people think that's mental weakness. Bro, it's actually really hard to keep getting back to finals and not winning them. You know what I mean? That's what takes a toll on you. Like from knowing players, one of the things that really starts to fuck with you is you do things like, I said earlier how if you keep getting beaten by like a vitality, you think, right, next order of business is let's fucking prep for this vitality. Let's get in the demos. Well, then what happens? The joke is you go super deep on that. Then at the next tournament, you overlook some team in the like 9th place game and then they fucking beat you. You know what I mean? Like some teams comes out of nowhere. And, like in this case, Falcons won. I mean, how could you even prep for that? We had barely any information on them. They do have a bunch of players. Like Nico was back at that event, mate. The firepower was crazy. That's the Falcons that people were terrified to see turn up in the server. And also, again, like, I'm sorry, I don't believe Kicksan is making some next world level fucking calls. Like, I think people are shooting people in the head. Like, it's pretty hard to stop that in Counter-Strike if you're fucking playing some of the best firepower in the world. So I don't think there's alarm bells for MOUZ generally. I do worry though about the idea that like they can't just be a guarantee to make the finals all the time. I do think there is like a little bit of There's a little bit where I worry that it's grating on them that they keep coming semis and finals and not winning. And then lastly, I'll also throw this out there. I do worry, like he said there, the actual player. It's funny, everyone always targets my boy Exertion every fucking time. I get it, because every time they lose a big game, he will always be the one that has the shit game, doesn't frag, has a hard time on Tisa. But I actually agree with you. I also think, though, he has that factor that Nico used to have in some of the G2 rosters, which is when the game's gotten stale and they don't have an answer tactically and the team's losing, I think these players, they don't choke by doing nothing. They do the opposite. They do too much. They try to like win the round. They try to just break it open or go for some crazy play. And sadly, you can feed like a motherfucker if you play like aggressive rifle roll. You do that. So I do think he is the ultimate bellwether. If you see his numbers go down, yeah, they're shit out of luck. Like the best MOUZ games is where he's nearly always top fragging, and especially on T side where he's just tearing open the map.
Just a couple of things just to add in is that, from my understanding, MOUZ do kind of call by committee. Like Xertion actually helps the secondary calling quite often, and is especially on T sides the more aggressive. Like he's the one that's hunting and asking for picks or things that he wants to do. So I do agree with you as well in the fact that maybe he does too much at times. But what I will say in his favor is that he's not a player that seems to protect his stats. There's actually quite a lot of players in sort of the top 10 that you can see ways in which they could win a round or ways they could be aggressive, but they just never do it because they know if they have a bozo death or a bad death, it's going to tank their stats, and some of them almost constantly look at those stats as like a reflection on how good they were instead of how impactful they could have been if they had taken a leap of faith or taken an aggressive route. So that's where Xertion is kind of selfless for the team, because I agree with you. He's the one sort of player that seems to have a killer instinct to get back into games at times. But you are right as well in that he potentially tries to kill too much.
I also think you nailed it with the Infat one. Look, when you play the roles he does, you're never going to get all the scrutiny and all the people hating on you. But the problem is, if you think of like even past years, not only did this guy used to have very good production, by the way, the stats used to be very good, but you could just bank on him all the time to give you some like clutch round that you shouldn't win. The problem is, again, you can't actually always bank on that. Like sometimes he just loses a normal round now. And I think that's a difference maker as well for me. I used to think he actually was at one point in time last year. He was entering that territory. It's why Falcons and all them were so horny to get him. He was in that territory for me where it was like old Zipniks and Astralis, where you could see people were scared of him in the clutch or in a 1v1, That feels like that factor hasn't been that present recently, though. I'm actually a bit concerned about him.
Yeah, that might be a change of the balance. That's always something I've talked about. As soon as Spinks came in, I feel like there's got to be some treading on toes. It's not going to be as simple, especially on the T side, which is where he got some of his bigger frags. I always felt like there might be some sort of overlap, something that will limit him. Now, of course, Rating 3.0 revealed he's better this year than we expected, and actually last year he was even more insane than we really gave him credit for, relative to all the roles and everything. But yeah, Jimmy he's often recently, I feel like, this year especially, he's been the easy target for a lot of people. Just a target in terms of,
included.
Yeah, you included, but a lot of it, I do think, as I've phrased it before, is more of an expectational thing. Like people saw last year, it was so great. They wanted more of that. It's a bit much to ask of a teenager who has to do a lot considering his roles and positions. But yeah.
It's essentially, Jim Fat was made out to be almost like a Tanier type player. Like that type of caliber of firepower and impact. Maybe not, obviously the playstyle is different, but where Tanier is rated currently is how people saw Jim Fat last year. And then he turned into Zontix. Essentially that's a disparity where, he's still doing okay, but he's not performing to that same expectation. You're right.
By the way, I don't know about you guys, but I also have a factor where I know that like obviously finances aren't public in esports. So I don't blame fans for not knowing this. But when I look at this team, I'm actually not as harsh with MOUZ as I am with like Vitality, Spirit, Navi, even FaZe. Because to me, when I look at the names, like you made these names. They became names on your team. By the way, MOUZ is not a giant org in the modern day. They're not like we've got millions and millions to spend. Like, it's actually incredible that they're actually at this position where we're even having this debate. Like, why aren't they winning all the tournaments and beating Vitality every time? Like, that's dope to even be in that position. Like, that means he killed it. Like, my analogy would be, this is like, if anyone watches the Premier League, last season when you had people like Nottingham Forest was like 3rd or 4th at one point, you were like, how? How are you doing that? Like, I can't then go to them like, they failed. They didn't win the league. What do you do? Why didn't you just sign fucking this guy? Why didn't you sign Isaac? It's like, you wouldn't join, would he? Like, so I do understand that they're also in a tricky scenario. So in a weird way, like, look, I definitely will always point out they have chalked a lot of matches, and maybe they could have won some of these titles. Yeah. But I also think I actually really like MOUZ. I think that they are a fantastically put together squad. I do think they're punching way above the level these names should have, this team should have. So I also think they're in a tough spot, because you do notice, by the way, this is something people probably don't. It is conspicuous that you never hear rumors that MOUZ is going to sign a big player. You never heard it. You never even heard it from the Sphinx one, by the way. That just happened overnight. Yeah. There's never a rumor of, like, think about this Spirit thing. Spirit is playing with such a level of luxury, Yumi. They're like, I know we're winning tournaments, but could we win them harder? Maybe we're bringing this guy. In MOUZ, their whole shit's like, try again. It's like, you never even hear a rumor that they're going to, like, they were never in the mix to get a Simple or a fucking, they're not in the even, by the way, they're not even in the mix to get the Teneris of the world. Like, they don't even seem to try to get an IGL. For whatever reason, they're sticking with what they've got. And in a weird way, I actually think it's cool they're still really good. Might sound like Corpium, but whatever.
Yeah, they're almost like a slightly more advanced GamerLegion, for example. They've got almost the same allure in that, you know, they're essentially like an academy project that can actually do very, very well, except this one is supposed to win championships based on how well they have been.
Yeah, we'll see.
Absolutely.
We'll see what comes out of MOUZ NXT next. They have just refreshed again with a bunch of little kids. Like, maybe this group will produce the next Shuhei. Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, Yumi, you've got another pick. What are you going for now?
I'm just gonna lock in.
He's scared right now, because here's the problem. You're now at the point in the draft where there is no right answer. So whatever you pick now, part of you is going to be going, oh shit, they're not going to win the tournament, are they? So good luck picking a favorite now, mate. Go for it.
I'm going to pick an underdog. I'm going to pick an underdog.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you were going to do the Sophie's choice. Wait, do I really pick FaZe or Navi? Who the fuck wants to pick that? Nobody.
Yeah, those were definitely.
Go to the low one.
I'm picking Liquid. And it might feel like the wrong time, a weird time to pick Liquid, but I look at this field of underdogs, and I think there's a lot of weakness within this field. There's also other picks that I just don't think you guys are going to go for. So,
okay.
I'm picking Liquid because I feel like I was going to end up with them anyway. Listen, we went on counter stocks. We talked about Liquid. Yep. Me and T have this other show where we're talking about teams and whether or not we think they're going to do bad or do well. But I will say, from the Bounty to Esports World Cup, to be honest, Liquid don't look as shocking as I was expecting, given the way that their online events seem to go, given the exits they had from Cologne and, you know, these other events. It does feel as though something inside of Liquid maybe broke when they lost to VP Prodigy. They are It does feel like they are fixing things in a way that does reflect kind of positively for NAF and maybe negatively for Nerds. It does feel like the roles have been swapped over a fair amount. NAF is back into form, so to speak, but with that, you almost lose another critical component in that Nerds is supposed to be like an entry / lurker / space taker, finds great timings. It does just feel like he actually doesn't get given the space to actualize any of that. I've missed that Nerds since the heroic days. I've missed that Nerds since Ents. You know, there's actually several instances where they made it work, but this Liquid does seem to be trading actually a lot more effectively, and also Twists is just also hitting shots and has been even through their dark periods. But it does feel like it's contributing. Like they're playing more pack based. They almost feel like they've simplified to a certain degree as well on this Liquid side, which I think is benefiting them in the short term. And I can only hope that builds into this tournament as well, because this Liquid team should be good. I think most people agree it should be good given the pieces that are on this roster. Maybe bar Ultimate as like, oh, can he actually be an X Factor AWPer? But he does enough, and the rest of the rifling core actually should just be strong. So I'm with Liquid. I'm backing the redemption arc for them, at least in this event.
This feels, I mean, VP Prodigy loss was probably the most rock bottom thing I've seen out of a Counter-Strike team in a long time. Watching it back as well, it was 2 maps they lost. They lost on position, execution, utility usage. Not even that they got completely outshot. Sure, there's a couple of rounds where some VP Prodigy players hit some absolute bangers, but for the most part, they actually got outmaneuvered by a bunch of Academy kids. And that was shocking. So yes, they have awoken since then. They have played better. They've played 2 close losses to Vitality. Is that enough for me to be buying stock right now? Talking counter stocks, would I be buying their shares, heavens no. I really would not be. Now, I do think you've underplayed a bit, I think, Nertz's sort of impact in those 2 games. I think if someone was to go back and watch, be like, oh, he actually did a bit better than that. But the key part of that has actually more been NAF's revival, because NAF was the one who, as the team hit rock bottom, NAF truly smacked head first into the ceramic tile. Like, he was just bombing for the ground. Like, he could not maintain a level against anyone until he came to online play, which for some reason, online play against VP Prodigy, he could drop a good 25 kills. But I see what you're going for in terms of this rifle core cannot be terrible forever. Twist has shown us that he isn't. So surely the rest of the team can catch up, play some real CS, and they'll be good again. I just think they're going to go out in disappointing fashion in the lower semi-final of their group. That's unfortunately just the feeling I have for Liquid right now. I'm not vibing with what they have.
Yeah, I mean, they faced G2 in the first round as well.
I think that's a loss, I'm going to be honest.
Well, if there is a team to beat within the favorites, it probably is that one, actually.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I know what you mean, because this is one of the teams that kind of tortures me, because every time I look at the roster, I'm like, this should be like the fucking 7th best team in CS. Like, you know, with a chance to maybe like punch a little bit above your weight and get some upset. And not only, first of all, do they never actually get the upsets? Like, that's why those Vitality series are so torturous. Like, those are 2 of the best series anyone's actually played against Vitality this year. And they couldn't fucking win the maps. Like, they can't close the game out. And I have to say, that's the 2 main areas I worry the most about in this squad. Everyone else is all in the minutiae of the players. But the biggest thing for me is, mate, their T side is just ropey. It's why actually the Shuia thing tortures me. Like, if this was still Twist side yelling, you'd just say, get a real large yell. You already did. Like, I actually even think that was quite a shrewd pickup. That's the perfect time to get someone where his own stock was low, but, you know, you bring him into a squad like this, new environment, they need an IGL bit. First of all, that part just hasn't ever clicked so far. I don't know what it is. And by the way, he's now had quite a bit of time, because people remember, he brought him before the player break even, so he's had a decent... In fact, I even did that thing where my take before the player break was, I'm not really going to count these tournaments. These are the warm-up tournaments. It's the end of the season. You brought in bad circumstances anyway. The team was losing. But tell you what, you know, you'll get going after the player break. That just hasn't happened yet. They just can't win the games. And then the other thing that does worry me as well is I do think actually in their team, I have concerns about even like what is the philosophy of Team Liquid CS? Like, it feels like they haven't ever figured out their identity as a team, if you know what I mean. Like, here's the difference. I can look at squads like Aurora, and I might flame Magic, but I'll tell you what, the identity and the profile of the team is very strong. You know exactly how they play and where the strengths are, streamlined. By the way, you know when Xantares needs to get the kills, you know when Woxic needs to win the clutch. In Liquid, it feels like, for real, you have just put a bunch of good players together. The only one I'm not a big fan of is Ultimate. I don't hate on him. I just think, unfortunately, he had what you will find many times in Counter-Strike, which is he has some talent, but he's not a super talented AWPer, and he came into a world where that role is supposed to be one of the best players on your team, and so I think he struggles a bit in that sense. Like, in a weird way, I actually feel like he should be on a GamerLegion or something like that. I think that would be a fairer team for him. So I do think the AWP's a liability, but like you guys are saying, you look at the rifle core, that still feels like it should be good. I know what you means. Like, part of me, by the way, I've done this so many times in betting, part of me is so tempted when I see crazy odds. Like, this is the time to buy on Liquid, isn't it? This is when they turn it around. They do a little run. I bet they even had that one run at whatever it was, Melbourne or wherever it was. They had like one tournament they did a little run on. You feel like they should do it. The problem I have is I also agree with KingT. It's consistently not happened enough. I'm kind of scared. With that said, they're not like a top 8 team here. You are picking from the underdog teams. Of the underdog teams, it's probably one of the better teams to pick.
Yeah. Best name brand value of the underdog picks. If you look just player by player, this is not star-studded compared to Ecstatic's thrill ride of famous names that you've never heard of. Like, this is actually a stacked team.
Yeah, I think the biggest concern for my pick for Liquid is often, you describe them as looking sort of ropey on T sides, Duncan, but even when they have good rounds on T side, their after plans are sometimes atrocious. Genuinely, they either swing too hard or they're statues. And
you love to hear? This is one of those teams you'd love to hear the comms for, right? If you had a full
comms,
all English.
The comms just look bad. Like, I'm watching the VP Prodigy loss. At times, it's like no one has commed anything.
Yeah, it just feels very disjointed. Like they're not on the same page about what they want to do or what resources they have. It's almost like they're surprised they got into a bomb site. Maybe that's just also the kind of a sign of the times where Liquid have been sort of free falling for a little bit, where maybe everyone's trying to do too much or they've gone over all the mistakes in their practice and they're just trying to avoid making those mistakes. But then you don't make the play that wins you the round. So, I'm just hoping they've turned a corner essentially here.
Yeah, no, maybe it's the flashy effect. Maybe he has finally worked his magic and brought over whatever expertise he has. But we'll have to find out. Thorin, you have your second pick here. Still some favourites left on the board. Still some underdogs to pick from. Who do you like?
You know what? I'm actually going to stick with the favourites, not least because I fucking hate most of these teams that are the underdogs. So I'm going to push that to the side and then probably just go for some mad bias picks. So here's the team that I will actually pick from the favourites. I'm actually going to go with Furia. That's the one I'm going to go with. Because here's the funny thing. I don't think name-wise I should be picking them. I think there's bigger names. There's ones where, but the thing is, I actually will say, even though I think Furia themselves, by the way, I don't think there's much more to give. I think they've already sort of shown what that project can do. The thing is, like, one of the things I've noticed about their team is it feels like they match up against specific teams pretty well, though. Like, I actually do think the find of the season is Molodoi. Like, because obviously everyone already knew about Kiyasuke. Like, nobody knew this guy would actually be good. Maybe there were people doing, the videos where they're like an up-and-coming player. But I actually do think the only thing I've seen that's a failing from him is, when he got on the big arena stage at the major, he sort of shit his pants a bit. Like, wasn't it like 5 minutes ago? He was just some fucking nobody guy playing in bumfuck nowhere. Just like they're not even a famous Kazakhstani player, mate. So I do feel like he's been fast tracked to the top really quickly. But he's part of why that's happened. I do think he's kind of been a revelation in their team. And also the craziest thing I always tell people is this: get ready for a magical Thorin narrative, like sculpting here. You're going to think, well, now you're going to have to give Fallen some credit. No, I think the genius of this squad, actually, is that Fallen only has to do a decent job. Because, bro, the rest of the players around him are actually a pretty good roster. Like, now that Yuri all of a sudden remembered to play CS this year, like, KSRA's still really good, by the way. He can still be an absolute beast in the server. Yakinda, it's not even about frags for me with him. It's just the role he plays. If he plays that role well, this is why in Liquid I always thought was a flaw. They wanted him to play that role and then also top frag. It's like, what? Again, you're not donk, bro. Like, so I think actually he's fairly effective in that role. And then if you have, by the way, the Uris and the KSRA's to clean up after you, you're going to get a lot of fucking rounds, mate. You're going to be in a lot of games. And then lastly, you look at their squad and like, actually, Fallen doesn't have to do much in their team. He's not a liability. He's just the veteran that just has to win a 1v1 or just do what he can on T-side with a rifle. So I actually feel like they're a fairly canny squad. I kind of enjoy watching this team play. Don't think he's going to win the event, but if one of the squads left, there's a team that could do a dark horse run to the semis or something,
Yeah, I'm actually very disappointed because I was really hoping that Furia would somehow survive until I got around to picking
They were
him
never
again.
making it past me if they made it past Thorin.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
that's just not happening.
I was really hoping for it, and it's maybe the one win I have is that when most
that's why when I found out we can swap and do the underdogs, I was worried because I thought you're going to make me pick between Navi and FaZe. That is Sophie's choice. I want both to die, so I'm going Furia. Thankfully, they're still on the board. There you go.
Oh god, yeah. I remember when it first came out that Molodor was joining the team and that Yakindar was also joining Furia. Everyone, there was a bit of sort of collective community, huh?
It just sounds mental, doesn't it? I know.
Yeah,
it doesn't sound weird right now.
Why is the Brazilian team suddenly moving international like this? Also, a Russian player? Like,
Also,
it's not exactly like
it's when they said that line that killed me. When they went, it's okay because Yakindar will translate for Molodoi. What are you saying out loud right now? Why are you saying that like that's good? Like, that scared me, bro. But then I did remember as well, he is just the AWP, mate. It's like, what are you really telling him? Like, just shoot him. Like,
it's also, we have to remember the times of Furia picking up Junior, for example, where he only speaks English, and everyone's, that's even a harder transition when everyone has to suddenly start speaking English. But yeah, I actually underrated the fact that Yakindar would translate for him, and that the team synergy actually seemed to hit the ground running almost immediately, where suddenly Yakindar was getting flashed in for entries again. It was actually kind of sensational to watch, because it kind of gives me back the feeling of Furia when they had art, like hyper-aggressive entry rifler. And that was when Quesarado and Yuri were actually at their best, when they knew that they could reliably have someone that went headstrong first and they could play behind him.
It's
and
actually
try and salvage
a genius pickup, like you said. They've kind of modeled the team again like that, haven't they? Yeah.
Yeah, and they've got a hyper-aggressive AWPer that is also just willing to do whatever it takes to win a round, even if it is against every potential advisement. People will look at some of the decisions he makes and think, okay, that's a bit of a crazy choice, but that gives me more
kind
excitement.
Of dope. He goes for it though. He's kind of a bit wild, right? I
exactly.
Like that. I fuck with it. Yeah.
It's kind of like Art and Henny are back on the team, but they come from different regions essentially. So I've always rated the Furia pickup. I still rate it highly now, and they actually look quite well structured. If they look well structured at times, sometimes the rounds do break down quite dramatically, but I think that's maybe just a symptom of fallen calling, essentially, where if the first domino fails, the rest seem to follow as well.
It was an absurd move. Let's be clear. Even if they're going to get a lot of credit this year for the roster moves, signing a Kazakh Orpa who'd played in 2 teams, basically officially, and one of them was Amcal, famous for playing the worst CS anyone had ever seen. Even though if it wasn't the same core 5, it was still that org. And it was alarming, really, to figure out why they'd done this. But then I watched them play and I was like, oh, okay, they've understood what they've done. And that's what mattered. They knew that they'd signed a kid who could barely communicate in the same language, who had mega talent and had spent his entire Counter-Strike career playing the protagonist, the hero, the hard carry, who could hit crazy shots, but never could rely on anyone on his team. So he had become self-sufficient. They could just leave him in spots, in areas, let him playmake for himself a bit, and then as he gets up and running, like his language skills start developing, he starts feeling more comfortable with his teammates, then we can start having a conversation about playing some real team CS with him. And that's kind of the evolution they've gone through. And I've really enjoyed watching that. Molodoy being one of the rookies of the year was not something I had on my bingo card when I started watching his demos in like January or February. But by the time we get to this point, yeah, screw it. It's been fantastic. Great addition, great transition, I think, from Fallen to actually make the IGLing on a rifle work. He hasn't been a hindrance to his team.
Bro, he did it better than Cadian did.
Way
That's
better.
not even a joke. Yeah,
alarming
absolutely.
how bad
Cadian
was.
Yeah.
And yeah, Fallen did it fine. So no, I think this is a great team. They can kind of lose to anyone. There is a slight factor of that left, but they are going to be dangerous. I do think, honestly, one of their toughest matchups in this group for me is going to be seeing them play Legacy, because I'm like, the domestic matchup factor.
Oh, sure.
Legacy are a bit of a chaos team. Like, this could be weird. But I expect them to be a real threat to play against when they're playing against all these other rosters. Like, if they get to play a lower bracket match against a G2, I mean, they could give them some fits. They're going to be a difficult team, even for like a MOUZ to face if they do somehow match up. So I think this is a great team to pick as your second favorite. After we get past the top teams, I wanted them desperately. I didn't want to have to make that choice that you so vividly described.
Someone's going to have to, mate.
I think it's me, because otherwise, if I don't, I get stuck with a tougher choice. Do I want whoever's left plus VP or G2? Like, that is...
You know what's beautiful? I picked my 2 favourites, boys. I can just look at that buffet of the underdog teams. Remember, they're all underdogs. They don't have to do anything anyway. I can just casually pick. You guys figure out what the fuck you're picking now. Enjoy.
Yeah, that's why I thought it was a crazy move from Yumi to go underdog, but also go liquid. I thought that was...
You did it, yeah.
As soon as he said underdog, I was like, all right, cool, he's taking GamerLegion. I started writing it in the thumbnail, like in the show notes. So I was like, yeah, cool. No, he's gone completely out of left field. So best of luck to the both of us. That leaves me with 2 choices now. Back to back. My own double pick. Well, yeah. I'm going to delay the favorite pick. I'm going to leave that. And I'm instead go back to old reliable. There are many things that GamerLegion do well. Apparently, consistently delivering the results isn't one of them, but I know at any given moment they can turn that on its head. They have the coach for it. They've had a bit of time to, recover from their immediate exit at the last event they played. I think this is going to be a great time to bet on GamerLegion. Now, their AWP pickup seems to have failed them. I kind of, unfortunately, not that I wanted to, but I kind of saw that coming. They announced the Kersey edition. I said it. I'm doubtful. I've never seen anything from him that really shone to me. But maybe, again, Ash proved me wrong with Towson. Pray he proves me wrong with Kersey. Unfortunately, I've been right so far. He's not been great. He has been disappointing. But they still have this ridiculous ability to get wins out of these riflers. Now, firstly, it helps that PR and Rez have been playing legendary CS. Rez back to career best. PR, a revelation this year. But also it just somehow works with Towson as well. He can anchor a bomb site. He can entry. He can do a variety of different things super well. And so they got this combined with their tactical edge, their prep, and they can just go and win series time and time again. And sure, this season has been disappointing. Straight out in Cologne. straight out the Esports World Cup. They did win the CS Asia Championships qualifier, but let's pretend that never happened. That's not really that important for us. They only played big. I expect them to return to at least a competent level at this event in terms of expectation. We expect them to, in a field like this, at least compete for that final playoff spot. They'll be playing that lower bracket decider, whatever you call it, the lower final, to be that final team to make it out their group. It is a difficult group, not going to lie, but there are vulnerabilities in the favourites that they can potentially exploit. Their opening group game is against VirtusPro. If there was ever a time to pick GamerLegion to bounce back this season, I think it is right here, right now. They're my team to kind of stir things up in a kind of weak group in terms of the favourites.
I mean, I'm ready to just rag on Kersey, actually, the whole time here, because I think Ash has done a very good job at scouting players in the past, and his hit rate is very high. But this one just has to be a miss, because simply, when I watch Kersey, I see him in positions where he has opportunity. He has chances, he has the right spot. It's not like he's constantly in the wrong bomb site and he's rotating with an AWP and it looks shit. He is unfortunately in the right spots. He is finding chances and just simply missing. And I don't know how you coach him out of that, essentially. You know, he's missing shots that he is set up for. He's missing shots on openings to execute. And those are the types of kills that, unfortunately, you know, outside of the flair of other top-tier AWPers, that is what I expect at a baseline for any new addition, especially when the replacement is coming in for Slend, who wasn't necessarily the best AWPer in the world, but actually did hit those shots a little bit more frequently. So, yeah, for me, I look at the move and listen, not everything can be a total success. I think this has to just be a miss, and I think until they find a suitable replacement, I'm not with this GamerLegion team. I think I can't in good faith pick them when a pivotal position like this is being, I think, held. It's kind of holding the team back to a certain degree.
This is a tough one for me because obviously I do like the squad and the way it's composed. And again, if I do like the economic factor I did with MOUZ, they're another team that just kills it. Like, they definitely don't have loads of money. They definitely don't have high salaries. I doubt they can even pay buyouts for people. Like, this is one of the ones, it's why for the Kersey pickup, I think he's in such a tough spot because, first of all, you could actually argue Ash has made a bed for himself that because he decided to stay in it and not go to a Team Liquid or a G2, he's actually now made his own job like twice as hard because guess what? People have seen people like him and all the people picking the academy squads, and now everyone goes after prospects. Like, the joke is even FaZe and fucking NAVI sign prospects now. They don't sign the big names even. Like, instead of people actually themselves, put it this way, if this was 5 years ago, you automatically bring a simple back into your team. You don't even consider doing it. Or if you're actually a Spirit, you don't get like an up and coming player. You go get like one of the VP legendary names. You know, you ask fucking Electronic to join your team or Perfecto or something. Modern day, everyone goes after the prospects. So it means essentially, if you are the guy who doesn't have the money, you're not a big team, and you're also just part of this massive like feeding frenzy for prospects, you're gonna have to do moves like this with Kersey. You're gonna have to go, oh, is no one else trying to get this literal no-name 24-year-old French AWPer? Fuck. You're doing some like Harry Redknapp shit now. I saw him in a Sunday League game. I think he could do it. Like, you just fucking praying, mate. And sadly, I agree with you, mate. It has not worked. Like, he hasn't just had like struggles. He's looked pretty fucking bad. I mean, people have probably seen some of the clips that got to Reddit. There are some really bad ones. There are ones where, for real, it looks like his hand wasn't on the mouse. You know, like, that's how slow the reaction time was on some of the shots. And he just looks a bit shook, quite frankly. He just looks like he's been pumped up to tier 1 suddenly. And I always tell people this. The biggest risk in tier 1, I'll add a detail to this, though, is becoming the AWPer. Because you don't just go and play a normal game where you can hide in the map and you can just get... You're the fucking AWPer. Like, people not only are watching you, and by the way, when you miss with an AWP, it looks even worse. But also, your opposing number is like Zemu, Monacy. Like, the joke is, everyone who laughs like, hey, Wonderful will cook some of these guys, mate. He would love to play these fuckers every day of the week. So the problem you have is, I always say it is the most extreme jump up is tier 1 AWPer. But I'll tell you what, there's also a hidden factor, which is why I don't blame them for trying this move, even though I do agree it's failed, which is the Molodoi and the ultimate factor. So remember, Ultimate maybe didn't work out, but those first few months were looking fucking good. And obviously Molodor's looked amazing. I also do think that this is why you have to do gambles sometimes if you don't have big money on the AWP. Because assuming you don't want to pay for Dexter and whatever his buyout is, the reason you gamble on the AWP is there's only one primary AWPer per team. So by definition, it's actually the role that in theory should have the most hidden talents out there that really could be in like the 38th best team in the world. Like maybe there is some guy there that's still. It's why, like I said, the Molodor one, the Ultimate one, even the Jambo one, I understand why they actually were willing to break the bank and think maybe this is our Molodor. Basically, if that was true, you'd have done a genius signing. Everyone in 2 years from now would go 700k. Of course, you should do that. That's a banger. So I don't hate the pick. It's just the problem is so far it's looked really rough. And the worst part about it is, if you listen to all the good points you guys have made, bro, if this guy even was just Ultimate, they'd actually be a pretty dangerous team. Like, the rest of the squad are fuck with a lot of it heavy. Like, I do think they're a well-coached team. They seem quite solid. They have a decent floor to their game. By the way, even the recent results, you can actually shadowbox a lot of these. What, you lost to Mongols? Bro, they won the fucking event. You lost to Falcons. Falcons have some pretty nuts firepower. Sure, the 3D Max one's a bomber. That was very close. Fucking MOUZ one, by the way, that was insanely close. There's a bunch of these games where it's really, really close. You know, you're on the brink of doing something big. I also do think as well, by the way, you have to give massive props to Ash for what he's done with both Res and PR. Like, Res everyone was bored of that narrative of like, but what if he goes back to the form of I am, and I always told people, complete the sentence, motherfucker, 2017. Say the word 2017, and then look at the year now, and please stop doing that. The joke is, he's never going to be at that level, but he is actually way better. If you haven't watched them play this year, it is unbelievable the level he plays at. That is like a player where Ash has just worked miracles on this guy, mate. He actually has the years have fallen away, and he's actually a really good rifler. And then the PR pickup is why people rate Ash, because he can go and find these guys. Sadly, it doesn't seem to be at the AWP position. Seems to always be at like star rifle, doesn't it? But I tell you what, he has a crazy eye for like good aggressive riflers. Like somehow he can just pick those guys. I think that's a winner with that one. I think that's another player where I'm almost low-key surprised he's still in the team. I would have thought he would have been in a G2 or one of these squads that needs to pick up a phase, someone that needs like a big name aggressive rifler. I was expecting him to go other places. So sadly, I do like the team, but I also agree. I think this is a harsh one to pick because, like, in your brain, when you look at like the big names here, who do they actually beat? You know what I mean? Like, even if they catch, like, maybe they do get like, maybe they catch a phase with their pants down with a new player or something. But even so, I do look at a lot of the other squads, and I think all of them get them. I think NAVI get them. I think fucking Furia gets them. I think that's the problem I have with them as an underdog, unfortunately.
Well, that's my advantage. They're in a group. The favorites they have. Vitality? Yeah. Not going to beat them. VirtusPro, FaZe, NAVI. Sure. You're telling me they, in no world, can outdo two of them?
Oh, they can. Yeah,
That's the thing. That's why I like them as an underdog. That's why I think they're a must-pick. With the prep, with the top-end rifle talent, they can make it happen. And sure, Kersey might whiff a few shots, but their T side isn't built around Kersey, and their CT sides, they just need, with the buffed CT meta, just need to hold on. I think they're going to be good. They're going to be strong. And that's why they're my underdog pick, but I still have to come back to it now. With my second pick in this duo, I need a favorite. I feel both of these, the two best options left are in the same.
Here's the thing. Obviously, arbitrarily, we had to have 8 favorites, but like there aren't 8 favorites. That's the real problem, isn't it?
It's rough. It's rough. It feels like we got favorites, some okay names, and then a bunch of underdogs just tagged onto the back end of it. Look, the two best options are in the same group as GamerLegion. I'm going to stack my deck. Thankfully, they're in the other side of the upper bracket, so maybe they won't touch them until at least the upper final. I'm going to take the team that has been thriving with my latest, well, with one of my more recent prospects. I'm going to take NAVI. Now, of course, Makaze's promotion was not that big a shock to me. Now, just because the Academy project had been so successful, he had been so impactful, hard carrying every game wasn't quite true, but he was putting up ridiculous stats, and whilst he wasn't comparable to Kyosuke on the raw fragging sort of side, Navi Jr. were pounding Spirit Academy. They had like a 6-1 record against them or something absurd like that over the last sort of year, and so the pickup made sense. The part that shocked me was that it was only one player coming up from that Academy side, and they didn't have the sack, basically, to go for a 2. I thought this team needed more change. Something else needed to be addressed, but thankfully what they have done so far has worked. MOUZ has put up great numbers. He's been able to go toe-to-toe with some of the best teams and find the openings. Donk in interviews has said what he's doing is insanely simple, almost, derisively, just being like, yeah, he's just going out and fragging. Well, guess what? It worked. And they took Mirage off you. So I do think there is a lot of value in what he's bringing to the team beyond just brute force. Sure, it may look just like that on the surface, but the fact that it opens up apparently a new version of Bit, who we haven't seen consistently. He's had back-to-back-to-back sort of events of quality play. This sort of thing is immeasurable. You can't really quantify it. And I think it's important to just have that guy who's ballsy, who's willing to be on the front foot all the time and actually go for it. I love what he's doing. The rest of the team, we still have the questions. I still think Imma struggles to win a heads-up duel. If he's not shooting someone in the back, he's probably shooting over their shoulder. Wonderful comes and goes, and that's been a bit of an issue for them. But all in all, this Navi side, compared to my other choices and also compared to some of the competition in this group, I think they're looking pretty. They got Fnatic in their opener, who are a different mess I'm sure we'll get into at some point. They then probably play FaZe. That's a winnable game. I'm loving their chances of going straight to that upper final, where sure, they get bodied by Vitality, but that's fine by me. I think Navi are looking pretty for a playoff berth here, which will, I think, be sort of a cherry on top. Like, they've had a bit of an iffy start, but it's been a great signing. To get a playoff berth this quickly with a new player, considering how things have been going, will be great for them. They'll take that. Yeah, Navi for me is the better of the two choices in that sense.
Yeah, the problem is just simply that they haven't looked... I understand that MOUZ is kind of reinvigorating them slightly, but you're right. The rest of the team doesn't feel like it has... it's strange because I think Navi has always had great identity. This team almost feels like it's constantly changing its style from event to event just to try and find something that works to a certain metric. And not a lot of it has been successful. And, we praise Blade a lot. We praise Alexi quite a lot usually for the team and the system, but it does seem like things have kind of spiraled where I don't know if there's a misalignment between Blade and Alexi or if between Alexi and Imma. I don't even know if that calling dynamic is still a thing anymore. But yeah, Navi they're just odd because it feels like they're trying to play almost like Vitality, where the style changes every game, but it's just instead of winning everything, they lose everything. So I do like that MOUZ has straightened their focus a little bit in terms of setting up a hyper aggressive rifler, but you're right that the back end talent almost seems to be absent. When we look at other teams like Spirit, for example, you have a Zontix, you have a Shiro, people that can close out rounds fairly reliably. I don't think that really exists within Navi. In theory, everyone can do it, but that was only from the Navi that actually won things that we could expect that. Now this one just seems to have anyone's in a clutch. How are they going to fumble it somehow?
This is one of those times where when fans just look at they don't even look at stats, they just look at the HLTV rating, as in they don't even decide I'm going to look with my own brain at stats. I'm just going to let HLTV's magical number tell me if they're good or bad. If you look at the numbers, obviously the numbers are going to be way worse than last year when they were in all those finals. But for me, if you look qualitatively with your eye, the worst thing about Navi is it's like what you're saying there, Yumi. They just don't close games out. They have a really hard time. The difference is if they were in that game before that was 10-10 last year and, you're in like a 2v3, you just knew they would find a way. They'd find some fucking clutch angle. They'd like get an extra kill. Maybe they'd play off each other. Like a little bit of that is degraded. There's still a bunch of it there. Like, by the way, I actually do still enjoy watching this team on T-side. I still think they're a pretty canny squad. I actually think, if anything, now that the numbers are all super low, it does show that like people like Lexi B and Blade are doing a good job. Like they're sort of making it work. Also, I do think actually they deserve props for how quickly they've integrated MOUZ. He looked good from almost the first game, for real. Yeah. And actually, look, I agree with you, KingT. They definitely should have just done two moves, because when you get to the point they're at where you've completely fallen off being a contender, it's never one player. It wasn't just GL not winning clutches. Listen, that didn't help, because as Yumi's pointed out, he was their clutch player, by the way. He was the guy that would, again, every game you knew he'd win 2 or 3 big clutches, and that could be the difference maker. That could change the economy, that could win the game, that could actually, like, psychologically, that could fuck with you. But you haven't had that this year. I do think he would need to be replaced. But for me, I agree. You should have just knotted up and done 2 changes. Because the other problem I also have with this team, I'm just going to seed it out there. It's copium and it's far away from coming true. But as you see Simple farm all these tier 2 teams, what people still haven't stopped and thought about is this. if at the end of the year, Na'Vi still really is just like, the 6th best team, and they make some playoffs sometimes they're on the borderline, they make the odd semi, but they're never going to win it, and they're never going to win the tournament. Eventually, you are just going to think to yourself, should we have gambled on the simple pullback? Like, we could have had McCarthy and Simple in this scenario. Maybe that could have been like a fucking GL and Wonderful go out, or we could have gone with another. By the way, I'm sure there's other academy prospects they could have gambled on. For me, the only people in this team that should be safe is Bit and Alexi. That's it. Anyone else, in theory, if you think it's the right move, you could take them out, because surely the beauty of last year was they didn't have all the best players. They didn't have the pieces that just on their own you plug and play and they just frag out. It was a system. They made it. They offset weaknesses very well. They played to strengths. Even then, I always point this out. Last year, even at their peak, by the way, when they used to make every final, they still actually had quite a fragile map pool. It's one of the ways I knew there's no way this is like just insane talent in the squad, because that means on CT side you probably don't get firepower on certain maps. I think on Nuke was the obvious one. So, and that's lastly the other thing that I worry about this squad is it's not even just a firepower issue. It's you don't have the clutch players that close the game, and then even worse, I think their map pool is just a wilderness, mate. I don't even know. Like, if you ever want to have a fun game, this is what will depress you. Sit down, think of Navi's map pool, and try and do like a dry run draft against any top team. Bro, on paper they're supposed to lose to all of them for real. Like they don't have an edge on anyone. I mean, think about it, right? They used to have that, like, auto-win Mirage. People take for granted, when you have an auto-win, it just changes the whole game. That doesn't exist anymore. By the way, think about how many teams you guys could list right now that would beat them on Mirage. Like, Mongols could get them, Vitalik could get them, MOUZ could get them. Bro, almost everyone could. That's the crazy thing. So, you start to look, and then all of a sudden, they have to, like, try and, like, steal, like, a fucking Inferno game off someone else. So, I also think they're just in a rough place. It's sad, because this is another team that I do pull for. Like, I like when an Arvy's a good squad. I also think I want people like Blade and Alexi to be in position to, win tournaments, because I also want to see them, go to work on the Vitalities and the MOUZ of the world and test them. But at the moment, it feels like there's still, this is why the problem is, I give them good marks for the Mikaze pickup, good pickup, but it's not enough. It's not enough for me. But with that said, though, with the teams left, you had to pick them. There wasn't anyone else you could pick here, mate. This is the obvious one to pick.
Yeah, really is. I've been streaming a lot. People have been talking a lot about what they want for Na'Vi, and it fluctuates depending on who's available. It was Frozen, now it's Elige. It's basically anyone for Imma is the current consensus.
By the way, I actually don't have any behind-the-scenes info on the FaZe Clan move, but I actually do think that's not a totally implausible fan theory that I've seen put around, that the reason why maybe they did cut Elige is the notion that that's what Frozen wanted to stay. Otherwise, maybe he was going to Na'Vi and that was the squad. And by the way, if that was real, that's even actually a sort of a straight fire behind the scenes, because it wasn't rumoured for much. That's a straight fire pickup if they could have got Frozen, mate. That could have done it right there. That one move maybe could have put you right back to, close to the top. Could have maybe made like third or fourth. I fuck with that move, but didn't happen, sadly.
That's a lot of rounds closed all of a sudden.
Absolutely.
All right.
And I just feel like he would thrive under a Blade Alexi B system. That feels like a guy that wants to be told what to do,
Yeah, he'd be fantastic. Thorin, we're back to you. You've got both your underdogs left to pick, and wow, it's a star-studded cast left.
Listen, don't even worry about it, because here's the thing. I'm just going to lean heavy into that bias, son. Because you have to understand, we're in the fucking underdogs anyway, boys. It's pure. It's not even copium, it's hopium. You're just imagining the best possible world. So you know what? There's one team that I will always irrationally pull for while they have certain players, and it's Fnatic. I know everyone else might go, listen, online even, they're sort of a coin flip if they win against the top teams online. They've never actually ever come together, even with the Matisse version, like I hope they would. But it's another team where I just look at the pieces, though, and I'm like, first of all, I still to this day don't know how Blame F is playing in this team. That just feels like that fucking meme of that polar bear in Arlington, Texas, like, what is bro doing here? Like, bro, you are just like so overqualified to be on this team. It is nuts. Like, if people don't know, he still frags everyone's head off. He still looks like unfazed and shoots people and multi-kills them all. Like, this player almost certainly should be in like G2 or something. It's ridiculous. I don't even get, or Team Liquid. I don't get why he's on this squad. So that's already a factor I enjoy. I'll enjoy watching him play. I think he's a very good player. I think he's actually slept on. Again, another player where like that conversation about Zontics, they just see him as like a boring player. It's like, I don't know what you think is boring about shooting 3 players on like every round or whatever. Like, that's pretty cool, I think. I know. Might not be the sexiest style because he plays the off angles and that, but he's fucking really good. Like, so I've always fucked with Blame F. Then also, like I said, I actually think just because they don't get to go to LANs, so people don't watch this team, I think people who mocked that Jambo move have missed, like, that's not a bad pickup again. As we said, when you're trying to go for an AWPer that isn't like Dexter, the big names, you're already out there in the fucking bargain bins. You're, picking through old 70s soul records for a sample, like in hip hop or whatever. Like, you're already going to have to be out in the weeds. So this wasn't a bad pickup, actually. That was a player who, you even watch him on their team. He's an aggressive AWPer. He seems like he's actually got some skills. I'm assuming they also got the recommendation from Fear, etc. Like, this is the guy on my team that we should have picked up and bring him over. So I kind of like that pickup. Look, the rest of the squad has some issues with it. I'll give you that. I'm not quite sure overall. But bear in mind, you don't see this team play lands. I do think they could just have like a crazy, like, just the X factors. You drop them in this environment, who knows what happens?
I mean, also, Fnatic did just kind of go way through a bunch of AWPers. Like, they tried Afro, they tried Nok, they tried Bermilov, and Jambo is definitely the best one. Like, he had an insane major when Passion UA had that crazy run. And for a lot of people, I think for people that looked at Tier 2 CS, they looked at Jambo and thought, yeah, actually, why couldn't he?
But this way, he could have been in a better team than this, right? He could have gotten a call to a bigger squad.
Considering some of the signings that have been made, 100% he could have been higher up than this.
Yeah. So I always look at this Fnatic team, and I agree with you. Blame F is a fantastic player, and he still puts up crazy numbers. But I also think he's just got like this weird anomaly to him, and I've been calling it the Blame F black hole, where everybody else around him, regardless of what team he's on, he could be on Astralis, he could be on Complexity with other, star riflers, all of their kills just seem to be absorbed by Blame F.
Right, okay,
I don't know what it is necessarily, and I think part of it actually is to do with like almost his unwillingness to change how he's playing based on what the team needs in that moment. Like, I actually look at Blame F demos and I just think he's trying to hit this timing. He's going to go for this timing. Something's happened that should alter his decision making, but he is stuck with what he thinks is going to happen from the start of the round, essentially. Like, he's forecasted the future. He's looked into his crystal ball and he said, I get 3 kills this way. And sure enough, he's right, but it doesn't result in winning the round. He's almost got like this monkey's paw of, like you said, getting multi-kills, but it doesn't. He has no guarantees.
It is like he will
actually win the round.
If he went to the bazaar, I'll tell you even what the prompt is for all you AI kids. What did he say to the? What was his wish? Here was the wish. It's obvious. Look, I'm only one person. I can't control my team, so I just want to frag out in every game. There you go, mate. You win. Now it means all your teams lose, all your teammates shit. Like, it's going to be terrible for you. But at the end, 1 second before you die, you'll still be clicking the mouse and getting like a 3K in the head. Yeah, I'm with you. Also, on the other side, this is the purest grade hopium ever. I might OD if I even inject this right now, right? Also, the player they added recently, which obviously you didn't want to, you'd have rather kept Matisse and kept that lineup going. But when you added Cypher, listen, you have to understand, Cypher and Into the Breach, none of them were ever actually going to be top players, right? That was always like, that was the fucking miracle run of all miracle runs that they even got there. But I did think, if you ever watched that team, and then all subsequent teams, he does actually have a flair for how aggressive he is on the T side, that if you channel it right, is like, there's not a lot of players have the balls to do that, man. I'm telling you, a lot of people, like, when they don't get the kill, they pull it. It's like the exertion factor we were saying earlier. Like, I appreciate people that sort of don't shy away from that aspect. So, again, I don't know how that works, but if someone like that does hit shots on the T side, you can win some games you shouldn't win.
Yeah, it's just strange because Cypher looked actually very compelling on BC Game, but when he's joined Fnatic, it's just the games that he's played actually. I want to root for him. I want to sort of shelter him from the criticism, but also he has been quite shocking actually since joining Fnatic.
Bad. It
has been bad.
Very explicit.
Listen, boys, this is a pure bias pick. There's no analytical reasons, there's no results.
As soon as I heard the word bias, I typed into my timestamps, Thorin picks Fnatic. I knew it was coming. You're the only Blame F homer that's left. I think that's easy to say. Everyone seems to be a hater. I did have a great moment on stream where 3.0 was announced, and everyone immediately saw the eco-adjusted stats and started spamming in all caps, try Blame F.
Oh, of
course, his stats didn't change, because that's pure hater. Like, that's just being a hater to call him an eco-fragger still in 2025.
No, the funny thing is, if you remember, that was even someone, I believe Nero or someone even did an article specifically pointed out that, like, here's the problem if you're a noob. You're right, but you're also wrong. Or he is getting loads of eco kills. He's just also equally as good against the buy. So you are right, but you're also wrong. You're just tunneling on when you get the eco kill. He also does kill rifles just like that too.
I think the thing that sent most people though was that, like, his entry statistics, like his entry percentage, like it goes up by a lot.
He takes 40% of the openers against ecos. It's kind of nuts. But what matters is
because he's like, listen, let me handle this. Like, I know. It's like it's in his contract. He gets all the equal kills.
He has to. You know what I mean? He just has to. Right? He gets to call his shot. He gets to go out there. He gets to take them all down. But look, the thing that actually was revealed by that Nero article was how bloody good Matisse is. Because it showed off his KPR in full by rounds was 0.91, which was absurd. It was top 10 in the world. Wouldn't it be insane
if you could have seen the last lineup play? I wish it was the last Fnatic lineup at this LAN.
If they still had Matisse, this would have been a fantastic pick. It wouldn't have been a homer pick, a bias pick. This would have been insane because not only would they have had an entry who actually kills people, unlike Cypher, they would have had the perfect combination of players to just have a ceiling capable of hitting the playoffs. Because Jambo is a fascinating player to watch the POV. Now, he can hit every flick. He's insane in that sense. But he's such a high-sense flick-heavy player that he can have off-maps. He can have that sort of that downturn. But when he's on with a rifle, with an AWP, it's like having two Matisses at times. When you watch them actually play together, he could hit all those shots. He could break open bomb sites on an entry as well. They were quite insane, and it was okay to have old man Krim still dragging himself along because there was such incomparable firepower in a lot of these games they played in tier 2, tier 3 that they could just force their way to victory. Unfortunately, they don't have that now. They still have an up and down AWPer, they have a great blame F, but they have Fear, Cypher and Crims to somehow get over the line, and that's just not going to happen, unfortunately. I cannot see it manifesting.
It's the Hail Mary boys, go deep.
It really is.
Like, for this one.
Also,
don't worry, I will 100%. Like, if somehow they do anything in this tournament, I will take this video and I will edit it and I'll just put that little clip on my Twitter. Like, see, I called it, guys. I'll cut out all the part about this is a bias pick. I'll just put it in like analysis. There you go.
Pretend it's pure analysis.
The eye test. Some people just don't have that crazy eye test, you know.
Yeah, the read would be unreal, but no, there's no way. I don't think BlameF can drag this team over the line. If they even had like a better caller or like a coach who I recognized, I'd be more into it. Who here knows who Independent is? Need I elaborate? Like, this is just not the roster for me. I respect the bias. I do like it, but I just don't think it's going to work. Yumi, we're back to you. Double pick again.
Yeah, I have a double pick. Christ. I'm just gonna go. I'm just gonna go for all reliable. I've picked them loads of times before for.
Oh no.
I actually feel like justifiable reasons, but this time it feels less justified. I'm picking VirtusPro.
Oh, why is he doing that? You must like to suffer, mate.
I refuse.
The abusive X returns.
I know.
I refuse to pick FaZe. I refuse to pick FaZe. I refuse to pick G2. Okay. So I am picking VP, and it's for no other reason aside from, listen, they can shoot people. They're genuinely, this team is, I think, undervalued in just how good the team can be at actually finding openings, even if their T side is god-awful slow and honestly very uninspired at times. They can actually just have these flare burst moments where in a weird way, VP have still maintained this grind people down mindset. Yes. And it works to a strange degree because everybody knows it's coming and it doesn't have the same bite or the same the slight tempo shifts that James used to throw in, but they still get like a double kill on Flit, or they'll get Icy in a great position to find an opener on somebody jiggle peeking in a bomb site. And I hate that this team isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, because I see all these moves and I see what James is doing in like Power Vision, and I see players like Norbert still floating out. I just think there's so much talent, and also what they did to Flamus as well on this team, where they essentially didn't set him up to go for aggressive entries. Yeah. They didn't like the pace that he played with. There's a lot of reasons to hate VP, but this team actually is getting a bit of a resurgence in terms of like firepower and just in terms of impact from players like Flit and Fame, which I think were the key pieces that were sometimes absent during the spiraling period for VP.
This is, okay, the playstyle frustration for me is, I can't even explain it, because James is gone. Dastan is gone. They've reunited on different team and don't play like this. Why are VP still playing like this? Are they incapable of calling something else? That might genuinely have to be the reality, because there's nothing left of that old guard, that old combo, that duo that made this become a thing. So I'm just lost as to why they are playing like this. You're right, there's a small aspect of, like, the individuals are still quite good in ways, and if you give them the right fight, they can find something, and that's probably why, seeing as they can't reliably outcall anyone, they just slowly wait for someone to hit a headshot. But my lord, is it boring. They are dreadful, dreadful to watch. And on top of all that, they actually do play Dust 2 every now and then, which is the slowest and most boring map. And then they play it on top of everything else. It's just dreadful. I almost don't want to ever pick this team just for the culture. Like, I don't want to watch this kind of CS be played, so I refuse to ever buy into it. I'm not there.
Yeah, let's just say it was Riz when Jame was doing it. This is harassment now, I think. You know, VP have gone the weird route of copying someone else's move when they're just not as good looking.
Especially because the difference is, when they used to draw you into the deep waters of the Nightmare Fuel James style, they would win a lot of the games. Even if, yes, it was like, oh, how did they get over the line? Or it's bullshit, they only won that fucking... Yeah, but somehow they would question mark, win. Like, at the end of the problem is, this team doesn't win series. That's the worst part about them. Like, I agree, they also still do that, where, like, every map they have a chance to win is going to be 13-11 one way or the other. It's ridiculous at this point in time. Like, oh, by the way, this is where I'm scared, though. This is why I don't like them as a team. I do think they have a dog shit map pool. One of the worst map pools I have ever seen of, like, real pro players. Like, they have maps for real where they just have no chance to win on it. Like, if you ever look in a series, this team also, by the way, can only win a series 2-1 with a really close map. Like, they're going to have a map that they play against all good teams where they just get booty slapped, like straight 13 forward, like you just kicked straight out. And one of the worst things about this squad, it's why actually, in a weird way, the convenient thing, if you're a VP fan, aka masochist, is you've just changed hating on Jame to hating on Electronic, who was already molded to be the next hated on IGL. Because, bro, first of all, individually, he just fucking sucks in CS2. Yeah. He is so bad compared to how he was. Like, people forget this. Even at the end of NAVI and early on in Cloud9, he still would frag sometimes. He still had like a sharp rifle. He is so fucking bad individually. And as far as I can tell, he's actually just a terrible CS2 IGL. Like, this style for them doesn't fucking work that often. And one of the worst things, I think, is their T-side fucking sucks, bro. Like, I know what you mean, Yumi, because when I look at the actual names on paper, I refuse to believe these are all just bad players. Like, you put them on CT side, Flit still shoots people, mate. You know what I mean? Perfecto's only just come back, and he looks like he'll get back to being a good player again. Yeah. I don't totally bail on Fame. I do think they maybe misuse him a bit. The problem I do think you have is, though, Icy, unfortunately, just looks very average. I don't even hate on him. He just looks very average. And by the way, another problem they have in their team is they don't have a lot of aggressive players, you notice? They seem like they're a little bit of a... I mean, the style is really slow and baity. The T-side just doesn't work for me. I don't even know what the fuck that is. Inexplicably, I will say, though, it's not the worst call of all time, because they do somehow, every now and then, get in a position to upset someone or get them to the third map when you don't think they should. But I just think the saddest thing about this squad is, like, it's looking at the names and thinking what could have been, and then even though, yeah, we're not going to go into it now because he's not playing, the Flammers thing does bother me, because it's not just the idea that, like, you didn't like him. The idea he's in some, like, he's in, like, the ultimate fucking max security contract jail where you can never even get out, and you can't, he doesn't even have a window, you know what I mean? You can't even talk to him and meet him and have visits. He just talks in fucking letters to his lawyer, and he's never getting out. There's no parole, because the craziest thing is, if it doesn't work, first of all, that player alone makes me think Electronic doesn't understand CS2 IGLing, because he absolutely abused that player's style. If you saw him on GamerLegion, that guy was that was the player that you give like the 30% opening kill attempts, and he gets you in the round over and over again. You know, you're in bomb sites, the other riflers are all feeding and trading. They started like abusing his spot so badly, and then when it didn't work, just tossed him on the bench. And what I hate so much is, bro, can he just go to another team? I think that guy would do so much. By the way, let him go back to GamerLegion or let him go to a GT. He would cook, mate. I feel like this guy could do so much. So that in itself almost points to me that, like, VP just... There's some perception of what the game is that they see so different to me. So I'm sorry, I just don't fuck with this squad. I wish I did, though, because I know what you mean. I look at the names, I think they should be so much better.
The Flammers thing is really frustrating, because as well, we've had a glimpse. He's currently playing with a mixed team that goes by the very amusing name 9boom Pro. in the LAN-to-LAN qualifier that's happening right now. It's this ridiculously extensive qualifier, but considering the importance of that little LAN relative to the Russian scene, I understand why they've taken it so seriously, but he's putting up great numbers on that roster. Like, he's playing with Shalfie as his IGL, he's playing with Axile, Norbert, Zorte. Like, it's a tidy little Russian-speaking team, and he's putting up numbers. He's leading the way for them. It's something that could have been on this VirtusPro team, so it is frustrating. The other thing, their map pool is truly abominable. They have 4 maps that they've played and not won this season, or since signing Perfecto, which is almost impossible.
They didn't even say bad, Yumi. They just don't win on the 4 maps.
I know.
4 maps really they have yet to win, really and only 2 of them they played once. 2 of them they've played 3 times and lost all 3 times. How do you even manage that?
This isn't a favorites pick for me. It's more like a wild card, essentially.
Okay. This is your Hail Mary.
This is a wild card. I've gone with 3 underdog picks, essentially, and I still have to pick another one.
Hence why I was so lost when the Liquid call came in. I was like, oh, he hasn't counted. Like,
yeah, no.
Also, listen,
as
one of my favorite movie lines of all time is the line from the film Blade, where he says, "Some motherfuckers always try to ice skate uphill." Right, when you pick as a favorite VirtusPro, and then you pick as an underdog Team Liquid, I feel like here's the thing, you're doing actually what I joked about with like taking the Twitter clip. You're just farming the most obscure possible like Hail Mary call ever. Because if you get it, by the way, you look like a genius. And also you also sort of are protected. Because if they do shit, everyone thinks they're shit anyway. So you won't really be flamed that hard. But you're reaching on this one. This is a fucking Dalsim reach, man. This is a crazy reach.
Yeah. It's probably my as well delusion in not picking someone like G2 or FaZe because
listen, I don't like FaZe either, but surely better than this. Come on,
maybe
no.
Now
the Carrigan hater manifesto on this show has been crazy.
G2's not a bad roster. They're all right, you know.
I can't get behind the in-game leader shift to Hunter. It is very firepower heavy.
Yeah, I'd rather rely on Electronic to get my wins.
Yeah, well,
when you put it like that,
maybe I should have reconsidered.
Well, it's too late now. It's locked in, and that's great for me as someone in second place. Thank you. Charity work ahead of time. You didn't have to. You've got a second pick though. You've got to finish your underdogs. Got some lovely options here: Imperial, Ecstatic, M80, FlyQuest. Hell, maybe Legacy. Who do you like?
I think the real problem I have is that I want to pick FlyQuest, but their opening game is against Spirit, so they're just going to be fighting from behind.
The mental's gone already.
They're 100% losing that game, and it's not. I don't think it's going to get much better. So, God, I almost want to say Legacy.
I know you do.
Yeah, I'm going to pick Legacy. Fine. Listen, I don't know what has gotten into Lato, but he is having a career best year, and he's not really necessarily played outside of the region so heavily. I think that's always going to be his downfall, is that he actually lacks international experience, and it's not like he hasn't had interactions before, but it's not, Legacy haven't necessarily gone deep enough in tournaments where I can say reliably that he will be like a veteran by the time he's 24. But Lato to me is already having one fantastic. He's doing a fantastic job as sort of like a second, third in type player. He's getting a lot of really good clutches, really key trade kills, and I just think when and my sample size is unfortunately very limited because I don't stay up and watch Legacy games necessarily all the time since they're in South America. But in the few games that I have watched from him, he's just looked like unreasonably sharp. Like I watch some of these players and I look at crosshair placement and how often they skip angles. Lato actually doesn't seem to skip angles that frequently, and he still like reacts quite quickly. And part of that is that he's not necessarily going in on entries, but his adjustment rate is very high, and it's actually quite sharp compared to. God, I just picked them, so I feel weird ragging on them. But I was down on Flit for quite a long time as that sort of secondary trading type player. Lato actually doesn't have the same deficits. He doesn't fumble the trade kills on executes nearly as much as.
It's just so mad you can't.
I know. I hate that I've done it, but it's just
hey,
it's the easiest reference.
My other pick. I know.
It's the easiest reference point I have because I used to just hate Flit for it all the time. Like Norbert just threw himself into bomb sites and Flit would just whiff all the time. No, but it's nice that Lato and honestly, like Lux, MOUZ, this is like a combo piece. It does feel like this team just has a reasonable amount of firepower within the region, and I think, you know, they maybe lost to a couple of top teams within South America, but I would actually place, in terms of like a power ranking and consistency, Legacy are actually ahead of quite a lot of the other teams in the region. Like Imperial are maybe close-ish, but I just think when I see MOUZ, I see Lato, I don't get that kind of impact from someone like Imperial. So it's either them or it was FlyQuest.
To be honest, that might be your best pick yet. That was inspired. Thorin, we don't have much time to watch Legacy play. We don't have that much time for Brazilian CS. How much have you watched of this roster?
I've only basically seen them at the major, at the odd tournament when they're just in the tier 1. So I have to say, I probably have quite a deluded perspective, because I actually think there's times at the major they walked on water and they're probably better than they should have been. I mean, remember, they were the team that wasn't supposed to be there for real, and then they kept surviving through all the stages, and, you know, like at the end, like actually some people even thought they maybe would crack the playoffs. Like, they were looking good. The problem I have with this squad is essentially I can only look at the individuals. I haven't seen enough of the style to know, like, stylistically how they'll match up. I do think the two players you guys have highlighted are legit. Like, remember, the key thing to always remember about Brazilian Counter-Strike is the whole reason Furia right now is an international team is because actually it's the only region in the world where the top talent doesn't filter up to the top. Like, remember, if you look at Furia, Keserato and Yuri were already on this team like 5 years. That's where they began. They didn't go to another squad to get picked up. So if you have a look, it's the reason why actually it's beyond Furia. It's underrated how good some of the players are in Brazil. I mean, I always tell people, like, you don't have to look at stats. Just watch Insani from MIBR. The guy's fucking bonkers. I'd think the same thing. I think when you watch Lato here, it's like, bro, surely this is the player that you would have signed if you wanted the AWPer in Furia. This is the obvious one, right? Like, he's already proven it at some good lands. Like, he actually looks really strong. Also, by the way, not even bad on T side either. I think a lot of CS2 AWPers, the reason why the AWP's not as powerful is they just don't do any aggressive peaks, mate. They just fucking sit at the back and then they wait till CT side and farm. This guy does pretty well on both sides. And then the MOUZ guy, people might remember, he was the one that actually a lot of people were looking at a few years back. He was the sort of one on the rise. It seems like he's actually blossomed to some degree. My obvious problem with this team is I do think once you get to the back end of the squad, like the lesser players, it falls apart a little bit. But then again, what do you expect? Like, it's not a massive org with legendary names. Like, you got to take those two players alone can get you some maps. You can get. Yeah, got some. I agree with you. Firepower is actually probably the best quality they have.
Just to tag on, because I focused a lot on Lato as like a trading piece, but I think really the biggest strength from Legacy actually is their versatility, because it's like MOUZ and Lato are essentially both trading pieces, but Lux is sort of, he's still bearing that self-sacrificial IGL, I'm going to throw myself in head first type of player, and sometimes he's set up for a little bit of success, like he's not necessarily a sacrificial lamb, like Lato on AXX and Mirage, for example, will just go in for entries out from ramp. And he's not necessarily the most effective at it, but he is essentially just there to run distraction. As soon as he's taking a hyper-aggressive peek ahead of a Molotov or an Incendiary, he is not running headstrong into a bomb site just to take space. He's often, you know, buying time for the next play to come in. So that's why I think Legacy are a little, actually, weirdly, like, they're very aggressive, but they're quite sneaky as well with some of the calls that they try to make, especially on T sides.
Yeah, I don't know about this Legacy side. I'm mostly just not sold on Sadzin, and that's my problem, I think. Because otherwise, I'm on board for a lot of it. You know, I've always thought that MOUZ, he does disappoint me every now and then. Like, he'll show up to a big event after I've been crazy hyped. I've seen a couple demos maybe from Brazil, and I've seen him dominate. Like, this is a repeating cycle since like 2021, when he's like 16, 17, or whatever age he was back then. I mean, he's been around forever, it seems like. And then he'll show up to the Tier 1 event and just kind of peter out. But I'm still excited. I still see the talent. And then Lato was kind of similar, but he's sort of come and gone. Like, he's sort of been less consistently impressive over the years, but recently has really come into form. And I think this is what makes the team interesting. Problem is, like, Sadzin on the AWP, not that big of a fan. Like, I've never really been that impressed. Nissim, I don't have that much of a take on beyond what I've seen, which is not that great. Like, it's just a bit of meh at the back end that just kind of falls off. And I understand the appeal, and I'm going to be honest, if I have to make an underdog pick, I'm going to be looking for similar, like, sort of reaches towards the end here, because there aren't that many fully fledged, like, well-rounded rosters left. There's no team where I can look at and I like the calling, I like the fragging, and I like the support players. This team at least has the fragging pretty well sorted. Like, in terms of their top 2 strong players, those 2 riflers can lift a heavy burden, and Lux isn't half bad, so I actually do respect that side of the pick. It's just, yeah, obviously we have to bring up the downsides of, yeah, they're not that complete. They're not taking that next leap.
Even though, obviously, it's implausible to imagine they'll do what they did against Vitality at the Major. If you ever watched that game, it wasn't just that Vitality was shit. Like, those riflers did actually just frag people's heads off. Like, it was actually quite impressive. That's why I agree. You should highlight those 2 players at a minimum.
Yeah. So
it was spicy.
Yeah. A tidy little team. Could be a bit scary, but we don't expect them to do a whole lot. Thorin, you've got an underdog slot left to fill as well. Whoa, who tickles you out of this group?
Right, the problem is, I actually hate even picking this team, because I can tell you, as someone who does a lot of betting, I almost never, ever, even as an underdog, bet on this team because they just won't win games. It is going to be FlyQuest. And the reason why is, again, because when I'm at the bottom level here, first of all, I don't watch these teams play as often. And then secondly, I'm also trying to think of things like, for them to do something as an underdog, you're going to need like an unexpected performance, like everything comes together, this person plays his best game. I actually think if I look, here's the key thing, I actually, believe it or not, and this does say a lot about where FlyQuest is in 2025, the roster's not bad. That's actually the craziest thing. The moves they've made this year are quite shrewd, actually. Like, the Netic guy, who everyone told me the hype was, he's actually like the most talented, like, he actually seems like he has some skills, man. I can see why they picked him up. Like, he looks like in the future he could be one of their stars, still getting into the role, but I can see why they picked him up in that sense. But it's way better to gamble on a player like that than do what they were doing the last few years of, like, if you just were a famous player in the past in Australia or New Zealand, you just get to play in FlyQuest. Like that, it can't be a retirement home. This squad actually, by the way, does look like they're trying to get the right blend of veterans and up-and-coming players, because basically the only one they had before was Vexite, and the problem that you have there is he's not some like super talent. He's never going to be hit the top. He's just a guy who has some nice aim, and he's still figuring out the pro game. But I think you look at their roster top to bottom, it's not bad. Like, first of all, JKS move, it was a slam dunk anyway. He probably is still overqualified. The key thing I've always said about JKS it's counterintuitive is you have to give him comfort, right? You basically have to know what his game is in his profile and give him that. But this is where it's counterintuitive. He doesn't actually have, despite what you might have heard, a star player ego. He will never actually be the guy who says, I need these things. Well, the beauty of FlyQuest is, I'm pretty sure the second he walked in the door, they were like, here you go, Mr. Savage, here's your chair, and here's your spot on CT side of Nuke, and when you're on T side, he'll go in first. Like, they give him everything they want on this team. And by the way, it looks awesome so far. It's actually paying dividends. Like, he is the player you would hope he would be. Way better than he was in Liquid. He looks like in those squads, he was sort of sidelined. Then you go, like, the Netic guy's skilled, like I say. That's actually, like, not a bad squad. If you don't know, Regali was actually a decent pickup, because that guy was at that point in his career where I don't think he was going to get more chances, unfortunately, at the bigger squads. Like, everyone's already sort of past him and on to the next up-and-coming Orpers. So I even think that was a shrewd pickup. Like, he has fragged out for them. He's been their best player. So I think when you look at the squad, the firepower actually sort of underrated in this era, I think. I think people look at them and think the Australian squad, they're going to be shit. Like, this isn't the squad with fucking Leas and those older players anymore, boys. Like, there's actually not bad firepower here. Obviously, as I said, the real issue is they do seem to have like some sort of psychological problem winning games. Like, I've seen them in position to win so many times. I've been tempted to bet them as underdog so many times, but I'm mainly picking them here because look who else I have. I have fucking M80. I don't even believe they're a real team. Ecstatic, just haven't seen them play enough. And then Imperial's just like, unfortunately, they're the red-headed stepchild of the Brazilian scene who just seems with all the leftover players, aren't they? Like, I don't even believe that's the real squad they would put together. So of them, I think I have to take FlyQuest. I think I have to.
Yeah, do you want to jump in first, or because I'm?
Yeah, I mean, I
agree with you though. They do have to play Team Spirit first, so they are going to get absolute shit.
In that sense, they are screwed.
We're going for the lower bracket run, boys. It's all about the lower bracket.
Yeah, true.
That seems like something they just can't do. Like,
it's not about getting knocked down; it's how you pick yourself back up again. You know,
that's exactly their problem, though. We've talked about this before. They are terrible at picking themselves up. They, as soon as they start losing, utterly collapse. Yeah. Now, maybe they can enter that Spirit game with a sort of like, we know we're dead, so let's just go out here, warm up. This is our death match, lads. Like, let's take it not too seriously and then try to actually bounce back. But look, realistically, yes, you're right. They have potentially put together the best team you ever could.
I think so, yeah.
ANZ, like, sure, people always talk about Renegades, still carried by a Norwegian. Let's not get too excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
In terms of a collection of talent, this is pretty damn good, approaching that level. Obviously, the question mark is the calling. Just the first thing you have to get over.
True.
Inns back on the call. It was bad before, then Dexter came in, now it's back to Inns, and we watched them play. It's not fixed itself. And that doesn't help that he's also not been bringing the firepower. In terms of a fragging IGL, that's not been him.
He's one of the better players, yeah.
He was 100%. He was the best player ANZ ever had, according to some people. Hasn't really maintained that. Vexite, of course, the failed prodigy of the scene, who's now able to be a competent role player, probably better than most other pieces in the region. He's just not been outstanding. And then Netic, well, hopefully he doesn't become the next Vexite. Let's put it that way. He could be on the same sort of path, but we hope not. The real blockbuster part of this has been the most recent addition in JKS, and of course the addition of the Romanian Danish-speaking Regali, who is just a phenom in terms of mechanical ability. Everyone enjoys watching him play. I know not everyone actually likes him. Check out members content for an interview on that, but I'm just going to plug that casually mid-show, but I have to. It's pretty funny. But yeah, JKS has been fantastic just in terms of delivering the kills. It's kind of reminiscent of that one sort of G2 event he played, if you remember, where it's Katowice, right, where he's standing in and then they just win and he's going off. I believe it's the Kato one. I can't remember which one of their actual event wins it was.
It was on FaZe, wasn't it?
Was it FaZe? It must have been FaZe then.
Yeah, JKS was standing on FaZe.
The FaZe one, that's the one.
And Rain, yeah.
That's the one, where he all of a sudden pops off when he gets set up and you're like, oh, this guy can do it. He's not just some support player. That's part of the reason people were frustrated he got cut instead of NAF on Liquid. So there have been bright spots. Currently, they're going to be coming in with JTR as their coach, who was their assistant coach, who's a 22-year-old lifetime coach. Like, he's always been a coach in CS. It's a weird career path, but it's worked for him, I guess, coming through the Portuguese, then female, then Brazilian scene. Like, he's gone a few different places. He's gone all over the shop as a coach and assistant coach. But he's going to be behind them. They do need, I think, the right pair of hands to guide Inns into being the best IGL he can be, and that will probably unlock their full potential. I'm not sure they're going to reach that here, but the pure like firepower aspect of who these players are could bear some fruit, I guess. They're just going to have to start in the lower bracket. This game doesn't... There's no chance. They don't start in the upper bracket.
God, FlyQuest are just very frustrating to watch, because I actually believe that even with the Dexter lineup, they actually can beat like anybody in the top 10. Like, genuinely, you've seen that we've had games where they've played top 10 teams where they've taken maps they've had either very convincing wins on maps and then they lose a whole series, or they barely lose in OT. I genuinely think the talent is there. It's frustrating because this team has a lot of good firepower pieces. You know, you guys are both around the money with that, but it almost feels like nobody wants to do anything. And I don't think JKS necessarily fixes that problem for them. You know, Netic is essentially supposed to be the solution in that endeavor, but he, on entries and on his previous teams, it felt like he was, you know, a part of a pack when they were going for map control plays. Now it just feels like they're just kind of stringing him out a little bit more solo and trying to devise the round from there, but they essentially need an initiative driver on this team. And I think that's what Dexter did so well before Inns took over in-game leadership. And listen, I'm not going to argue whether, you know, Dexter should stay on the team or Inns should have. I've mentioned that a lot, that I thought Dexter was doing a fine job calling, actually, and fragging. But if I have to weigh up Dexter for Inns, like, Inns is technically the more talented player, and so I have to believe that he can recover some level of form and adequacy in the calling department, that it can make it work. You know, a la a Brolan, essentially, but hoping for a little bit more firepower. This team has a lot of clutch factor. Like, mid rounds, late rounds, in after plants, there's so many pieces that can actually just win you around. It just feels like getting into those positions is actually just almost an impossibility for FlyQuest at times. And I don't know how they necessarily fix it. I think it actually does have to come from a coaching angle. So that's why I'm hoping JTR inspires them a little bit. Because, yeah, this should be the best team that's ever been assembled for them. Just in terms of pure ceiling, it is definitely the best that the Oceanic region could hope for.
Yeah, especially considering they stayed more than 3 OC. Like, this is 4 OC players. This is about as good as it gets. Unfortunately, yeah, that's not too great of a system.
Especially when you see Mongols winning events. You have Tyloo and Lin Vision both having, you know, runs at events, where the Chinese scene, for example, spends quite a lot of money, but in terms of expectations, for the past 4 years, it's actually been at an all-time low. So when you look at the Oceanic region and this is the best team that they've assembled and they keep on doing it. If this doesn't work, I don't know what will, and it will just essentially be a massive red mark on FlyQuest and a massive failure given the amount of resources that's been pumped into it to try and make it work.
Yeah. Now we come to the final pick of the show, which is famously usually some horrific reach where someone has to wax poetic as to why secretly they believe the roster they're selecting is amazing. And now I was this close to making a very, similarly biased pick. Just picking a team because I really like one of their players. And screw all the other little details that the rest of the roster makes no sense, and they're all bums basically being dragged by one man trying his hardest. But I decided not to go with Imperial. I decided not to. I was like, you know what? I'm going to find some way of believing in M80. I'm going to figure it out. Yeah. I don't want ecstatic.
I can't even believe that. I really thought you were going to say ecstatic because you were using before the logic of who they play. At least they play FaZe Clan. That's, of all the underdogs, that's not even impossible. You could fluke that, you go with M80. Again, listen, you're on the same... You're uphill with the ice skates, yeah? Okay, right. Go on, explain to me how M80 starts playing Vitality.
So here we go. Firstly, Vitality in your opening game.
Also, by the way, if they do somehow beat Vitality, you have got the greatest stream clip of all time. So clip that instantly.
Because straight away, they play Vitality. Opening game. Are Vitality going to take these guys seriously on this kind of turnaround from EWC? Are they going to be crunching the demos of them beating, hold on, let me check, Getting Info, Blue Jays, and Verstappen Peak? No, of course they're not going to be prepping those demos. They are not going to give a toss.
Even if they are, I don't know what they're going to get from those demos.
They're going to get sweet nothing. It's Getting Info.
Exactly. I can't even imagine them all saying, what is it doing? What is this? It wouldn't help you at all, mate.
Yeah, you'll just be watching guys running in with no flash, even though full belts of util on everyone. It'll be pointless. But think about this. I talked earlier about I want a team that's got something well-rounded about them. I want some calling, some role players, some firepower. Okay. I have a coach in Death who's taken bonkersly shit rosters to real placings. I've got Sin as an IGL who has surpassed all expectations. I have on my firepower front, look, he was no replacement for MOUZ, but Lake has had solid games against legit competition. And I think they've slowly gotten better in terms of the overall roster. Hext is a much stronger player than Rek. I don't think there's any contest about that. I'm a big Hext guy. I have been since he was wasting away on Evil Geniuses. I genuinely think they've gotten slowly better over the sort of last 4 or 5 months. Now, have they beaten anyone impressive since he joined? No. They've even managed to lose to Wildcard during their decline, or rather intentional decline. I don't really understand what they're trying to do.
Controlled demolition.
Yeah, it's basically that. They're slowly just killing themselves. I don't understand why. But this M80 side actually has things that make sense about them. They've got players in roles that make sense. They've got an IGL that's been quality. They've got a coach who has coached teams before, not just a guy who happens to stand behind them. I think M80 have a better chance, firstly, in that first game upsetting Vitality than most of these massive underdogs do. And I also think they have a better chance of stringing together that sort of bullshit run after that fact to actually make it through to the playoffs. Now, I have picked underdogs from the same group as one of my favorite. I've got 3 teams in that group A. I have kind of loaded the deck. But I legitimately think this M80 team have a shot to actually make it work, just because I can't look at the team and be like, outright, this is the wrong thing for them. When I look at Imperial, I know that I don't have good role players, pieces that make sense together. When I look at Ecstatic, I know I don't have a top-end star. It just doesn't exist. There is no one on that team. I like Syra, I don't love him. You know what I mean? There's just nothing that thrills me. At least in M80, I've got a psycho in Lake who's going to fight everyone 1,000,000 times and scream. There's going to be something about them that has some edge, some fight. They're a feisty little team. They're definitely not going to make it through, but I think it's worth taking a shot on them over the last 2 that remain.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add on. I can't remember the last time I watched an M80 game with any real intent.
They've been floundering, so I don't blame you.
Yeah. I think the one positive, and I guess the only tag along I'll have here, is M80 should have some new fans, at the very least, with Complexity leaving the circuit and essentially going. I mean, the team is now Passion UA.
They're still technically an America's team just because of the way the VRS bollocks works, but
the branding is all confused.
It's a mess.
I think for most people, they'll just think, oh, well, we still have this NA team. You know, Liquid's been kind of and
much like NASA, a few Germans into the mix, and all of a sudden it works, right? Like that just makes sense for America.
It's just at least they've imported the right talent, and they seem to be doing quite well. So it's kind of like a national GamerLegion type team. You know, it feels like one that they very clearly came up with a very understood direction about how they wanted to pick up the players. They've done a good job of scouting players for positions. They've done a fantastic job of harboring that talent and actually growing it into something that is quite good for the most part. I mean, we have a lot of good things to say about M80 and the project, because I think there's a lot of organizations that come in with, oh, let's just pick up a team and let's just try and get to the highest ranking possible. Or, oh, already pick up a team that's already high ranking. But M80 did it from the ground up, and they've, I think, done a very solid job. Like, it's clear they wanted to spend time building the project, and they've done a good job of that. That's all I can say.
It's also clearly another squad where, again, they don't have massive draw in any area. They don't have loads of money. They're not a team with famous players in. They're not a famous org. So you're going to always be scraping around trying to find people where, like you say, you're going to have to pick up like the leftovers. When someone doesn't want Hext anymore, you're going to have to grab him quickly and hope you can make better use of him. I actually don't. Here's the thing. I don't give a flying fuck about this squad. This is one of those teams I do just look at the tournament and go, hope you just lose twice and I just watch the other teams. But with that said, if I have to look at their players, I know what you mean, KingT. I actually, maybe it's because it's CS2 and it does seem like it favours the aggressive AK. I actually really enjoy any AK player on T side who just attempts a billion fucking openings. I actually do think that is like, that there is something to that where if you can make that work, it's compelling. Like, I know what you mean. It makes the rounds more interesting. It's the opposite of a VP type boring ass game, basically. So that Lake angle isn't a bad one. And then I also do think, again, he is also the polar bear in Texas. I don't know why Slacks is in a fucking NA team for his whole career now. Like, I remember as a German player from the fucking German scene, but he's not a bad AWP. You put him on CT side where a lot of the AWPers fight. He'll get some kills.
I mean, he's done a good job of actually reinstating his career by moving to North America, because when he was playing in German teams, he was essentially just a nothing AWPer, like very empty calories, didn't feel like he was that impactful, very static. Yes. And then he goes to North America and he just realizes, wait, I can do all this. This is crazy. I'm like a whole new person.
It's that I'm a tier 2 European AWPer. Let me go to a region where no one actually knows how to play the game, realize that I can be aggressive, and then I feel like doing it when I play a good team. Like, that's sort of the awakening he had, and it's inspired many others, I think, to do something similar. So no, Slacks, he was a tier 2 farmer. Famously, that was his whole like shtick in Germany. I mean, NA's pretty similar, but at least it has unlocked a bit more of his play when he does face legit teams.
Mantu was picked to AWP instead of him, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, if you had to make a selection.
I will say this event, though, I know it's kind of the format of it, but like, it is crazy how far the difference between the top teams and the bottom underdogs is. Like, it is nuts. This feels like, you know, teams that could win the major playing teams that probably shouldn't even get through stage 3 of the major. Like, holy fuck.
Yeah, no, it's wild. There's a rift, and look, we look at these two teams that none of us have picked or even considered picking, in Ecstatic and Imperial. I mean, it's a nice showing for them if they can show up and maybe get an upset here or there, or they can at least put on display some of their talent to maybe sell them off. Like, Ecstatic have an opening game against a freshly changed phase. Maybe they can take a map, make a game close. Imperial face MOUZ, not an easy start, but maybe your AWPer, you can set him up right. He can go toe-to-toe with Torji.
I do think he's a good player. I'm with you.
Try is fantastic. Like, you could maybe see some things that work out of these teams. But honestly, the rift is massive. There's a huge gap, and there's also a very quick drop-off from the top teams as you get to the middle. And that's opened the door, I think, for some of these underdogs to massively overperform. Like, that's going to be the real sort of opportunity that these teams need to seize. There's only 3 favorites here. Like, NAVI, we have questions. Furia, we have questions. FaZe, we have questions. G2 VirtusPro, we have nothing but questions.
The joke is we never even analysed FaZe at any point in the conversation because no one gives a fuck.
Yeah, no one even picked them.
No one cares, mate.
I do think, I was just looking over the team list again and just thinking, we should probably mention FaZe just because, like, yeah, they are replacing Elise with... essentially like a no-name Jacob. Like, most people will not know his play style. We don't know how well he's going to fit. There's a lot of unknowns in that regard, but they do still have a very, very compelling Frozen. Like they do still have that element to their game where even if it's just a little bit of chaos in late rounds, and late rounds, you still hope that Frozen closes out rounds and still has that impact.
Well, they've also even got quite a nice bracket draw. They've got one of the better ones, to be fair.
Yeah, no, the opportunity's there, but I also, the reason I elaborated that I like Na'Vi over them is because I think Na'Vi wins the matchup right now. That's kind of where I'm at. So it's kind of tough to pick them, all things considered. So no, there is opportunity for FaZe to prove us wrong. Hell, none of us picked G2. There's an opportunity for them to make playoffs here. Like, it's not crazy to see them win out in this bracket just off of, these mechanically monstrous players they have just hitting shots. As much as we do rip on Sun Pius, Hunter. The other three, phenomenally talented, and Hunter can still kind of frag. So we aren't done and dusted with those rosters either. It's just none of us decided to take that risk. All right, I'm going to wrap it up.
Some people preferred VP.
Some people preferred VP indeed. They really did, and that was fascinating.
Listen, I appreciate the confidence, the vision, the ability to see where others can't see,
A true shot in the dark.
Yeah, I am the blind, hopefully leading more blind.
Okay.
I'm not following you down that alleyway ever. Like, I've seen you try it a dozen times on this show. It rarely works out for you.
And one of these times it's gonna work.
Yeah, it's not today. But okay, if you enjoyed, leave a like, leave a comment, tell us your thoughts on any of our picks. So if you want more content, remember that members get access to a bunch more content, the right to vote, and some other nice little details. Thank you, Thorin, for joining us. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.